Hi guys, and welcome to Relaxation Bedtime History. Tonight we slip quietly into the narrow, restless streets of 1850s New York, where the morning light struggles to reach the ground and the air already feels used before the day begins. You stand there not as an observer, but as someone who belongs to it, or at least has no choice but to. The boards beneath your feet creak, the voices outside drift upward, and somewhere nearby a cart rattles over uneven stones. You take a breath and catch the layered scent of damp wood coal smoke and something sour that lingers no matter how often the rain falls. It is vivid, immediate, and strangely alive. And just to set expectations, you probably would not survive this version of New York for very long. Few do without scars. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And feel free to share where you are listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights. You wake slowly though. Waking might not be the right word, since sleep here never runs deep. Your eyes open to a ceiling stained by years of smoke and leaks, and for a moment you lie still listening. Footsteps above, a cough beside you, someone arguing 2 floors down in a language you do not fully understand. This is 5 Points the Neighborhood that many newspapers of the time describe as the worst slum in the United States, a place so crowded that entire families share single rooms and strangers sleep shoulder to shoulder just to afford the rent. Your own room, if you can call it that, holds more people than it was ever meant to. You feel the warmth of bodies nearby, the closeness both comforting and suffocating. The blanket you share is thin, but it traps just enough heat to make leaving dip feel like a small act of courage. You stretch your fingers and brush against rough wood, a crate repurposed as a table. Somewhere in the corner a rat scurries quick and confident as if it owns the place more than any of you do. Outside the street is already awake. Vendors shout, a baby cries, a horse snorts impatiently as it pulls a cart heavy with barrels. You sit up, your joints stiff, your head still foggy from a night of broken rest. The floor beneath your feet is cold, and you take a moment before standing, as if gathering yourself for what the day will demand. Historians generally agree that 5 Points earned its reputation because of extreme overcrowding and poor sanitation, with open sewers running along the streets and waste often thrown directly out of windows. You do not need a historian to tell you that, though. You can smell it. You can see the dark water trickling past the doorway, carrying bits of refuse that catch briefly on stones before drifting on. You move toward the small window, if it can be called that, little more than a gap with warped glass. The light that filters through is weak and grey, but it is enough to reveal the outlines of the street below. Children dart between carts barefoot and quick. A woman leans out of a nearby window and empties a bucket with practiced ease, barely glancing to see where it lands. Someone shouts in protest, but only half-heartedly. This is normal, this is how things are. There is a strange rhythm to it, a kind of order within the chaos. You begin to understand it the longer you stay. You notice how people move around each other without quite touching, how certain corners are avoided, how certain faces are greeted with nods and others with silence. Even at this early hour, there is a sense that the day is already underway, that you are slightly behind just by waking. You dress quickly, pulling on clothes that have seen better days. The fabric is rough patched in places with whatever scraps are available. Your boots are worn but still hold together, which is more than some can say. Clothing here is not about style in the way you might think of it now. It is about survival, about having something that protects you from the cold, from the grime, and sometimes from the judgment of others. There is a quiet understanding that what you wear signals where you belong. A certain hat, a certain cut of coat, even the way you tie a scarf can mark you as part of a group. It is subtle, but it matters. You're already learning that belonging to a gang is not just about who you stand with in a fight. It is about how you present yourself every moment of the day. As you step into the hallway, the noise grows louder, echoing off narrow walls. These stairs creak beneath your weight, each step a small risk as you descend. You pass others on the way, some nodding in recognition, others avoiding your gaze. Trust is not given freely here. It is earned slowly, and even then it can vanish overnight. A curious detail often mentioned in lesser-known accounts is that some lodging houses would rent out space in shifts, meaning One person might sleep in a bed during the day while another used it at night. It sounds almost impossible, yet in a place where space is so limited, becomes just another solution. You wonder briefly how many people have slept where you did, how many dreams or lack of dreams have passed through that same thin mattress. At the bottom of the stairs you pause. The door to the street stands open, letting in a draft of cool air that carries both relief and warning. Outside is everything. Opportunity, danger, hunger, belonging. You take a breath and step out. The ground is uneven beneath your boots, slick in places where the morning damp has not yet dried. You move carefully at first, then with more confidence as you find your rhythm. Around you the neighbourhood unfolds in layers. A man pushes a cart piled high with bread, the smell surprisingly sweet amid the usual odours. Group of boys cluster near a corner, their voices low, their eyes sharp. You recognise that look. It is the look of those who are already part of something already tied to a group that offers both protection and expectation. Historians still debate whether the gangs of this period were primarily criminal organisations or more like social clubs formed out of necessity and shared identity. Standing here, it feels like both. You can sense the pull of it at the way it offers a kind of family, in a place where traditional family structures are often stretched thin or broken entirely. You walk a little further, your senses adjusting, your mind waking fully now. The sounds become less overwhelming, more like a constant background hum. You notice details you might have missed at first. The way sunlight catches on broken glass, the faint music drifting from somewhere down the street, the laughter of someone who for a moment seems entirely free of worry. It is easy to think of a place like this as only dark, only dangerous, but there are moments even here that feel almost ordinary. A conversation, a shared joke, a brief kindness between strangers. These moments do not erase the hardship, but they exist alongside it, giving the day a texture that is more complex than simple survival. You adjust your jacket glance once more down the street and begin to move with purpose. There is no clear plan, not yet. Just the understanding that the day has started and you are part of it, whether you're ready or not. And as you take your first real steps into the morning, you begin to feel it, that quiet shift inside. The sense that you are no longer just waking up in 5 points, you are becoming someone who belongs to it for better or worse. The street remains behind you for only a moment, because before the day can properly claim you, you turn back toward the building, where you sleep eat when luck allows, and pretend to have a corner of the world that is yours. Your room above trouble is not really above trouble at all. Trouble rises through the floorboards like damp. It slips under doors, climbs stairwells, settles into blankets and waits beside you in the dark with the patience of a landlord. You climb back up one flight to fetch what little you own, and each step reminds you that nothing here was built for comfort. The railing feels sticky beneath your palm. The walls are close enough to brush both shoulders if you angle yourself wrong. The hallway smells of old tobacco, fried onions from some earlier meal, stale sweat-wet wool and the sharp bite of cheap spirit spilled sometime during the night. It is not pleasant, no, but it is familiar. And familiar is a sort of lullaby when the rest of life has teeth. The room itself is narrow and low-ceilinged. If you stretch both arms, you almost feel you could touch one wall and threaten the other. A cracked basin sits on a crate. A few hooks hold coats, shawls, and shirts that never quite dry. Your sleeping place is a straw mattress laid against the wall, though mattress is a generous word. It is more like a sack that has given up on its ambitions. When you press a hand into it, it sighs faintly with dust and old straw. You keep your belongings in a bundle tied with cord, a spare shirt stiff with repeated washing in dirty water. A small knife, used more for cutting bread string and trouble than anything dramatic. A bent spoon. A scrap of ribbon given by someone whose name you may not say too often, because sentiment is not a luxury people forgive easily here. You have perhaps a coin or two if the day before was kind. Today it was not yet decided. A mainstream fact worth remembering is that New York's population grew rapidly in the mid-19th century, especially with waves of Irish and German immigration after the 1840s. In neighbourhoods like 5 Points, that growth pressed people into subdivided houses, rear tenement cellars and attic rooms with astonishing speed. You feel that pressure physically. It is not an idea. It is the elbow of a sleeping man in your ribs. It is the cough from a woman behind a hanging sheet. It is the child under the table who has learned to sleep through boots and shouting. Privacy here is mostly a rumour told by wealthier people. Your room is divided by habits more than walls. Someone turns away while another changes clothes. Someone pretends not to hear a whispered quarrel. Someone looks at the ceiling while a woman counts money into her palm and decides whether rent can be paid. You learn to create invisible boundaries. A glance held too long becomes an insult. A question asked too directly becomes a risk. You do not inquire into everything. Curiosity is useful on the street, but indoors it can be rude, even dangerous. Rent is the invisible hand around your throat. It decides whether you sleep beneath a roof or under an awning, whether you stay with the same faces or drift into worse company. The landlord or the person acting like one may not own the building in any grand legal sense. You would admire, but he owns your immediate problem. Payment is due because payment is always due. He may smile while asking, which somehow makes it worse. You listen as he speaks with a woman near the door. Her voice is low and controlled. His is louder, meant for witnesses. She offers part of what she owes. He sighs as if wounded by her poverty. A fine theatrical performance, truly. Someone should put him on a Bowery stage, assuming the audience enjoys villains who smell faintly of gin. In the end, he takes the coins and warns her about next week. Next week is always waiting here, sharper than this week. The house is a machine of shared survival. Downstairs, someone heats water over a small stove. A girl carries a pail that sloshes over her skirt. A man with red eyes mutters as he searches for his cap. In one corner, an older woman mends a sleeve by the weak light from the window. Her fingers move with steady precision, as if the thread is the only dependable thing left in the city. You watch her knot it, bite it, smooth the seam and return the garment without ceremony. A quirky little tidbit from the period is that some reformers visiting crowded districts reported finding families keeping chickens, goats, or even small pigs in or near their living spaces, not because anyone was trying to create a rustic farmhouse mood, but because animals could mean eggs, milk scraps, turned useful, or something to sell in desperate times. Imagine trying to sleep while a goat considers your shoelace. Very peaceful, very refined, exactly what the travel brochures forgot to mention. The air indoors has a weight to it. You breathe in smoke from the stove dampness, from walls that never fully dry, and the human closeness of too many lungs in too little space. In winter, that closeness keeps you alive. In summer, it becomes punishment. You know the sticky heat that gathers under the roof, the kind that makes tempers flare, and sleep become a negotiation with misery. Even now, in the softer morning, the room has the stale warmth of bodies pressed into necessity. Historians still argue whether lodging houses in districts like 5 Points should be understood chiefly as places of exploitation or as rough systems of mutual aid in a city that offered very little formal support. From where you stand, both interpretations feel true enough. You're squeezed for rent, you're watched, judged, and sometimes cheated. Yet if you are sick, someone may bring water. If a stranger threatens you, a neighbour may step into the doorway. If a child goes missing, half the hall may know where to look before the police do. That is the strange bargain. The same walls that trap you also gather you. News travels quickly here, faster than printed papers. A death, an arrest, a wedding, a beating, a job opening, a fight expected near the corner. All of it moves through whispers and stairwell pauses. You learn to listen while pretending not to. You learn who has bread, who has money, who is angry, who is grieving, who might lend, who never will. Your gang ties live inside this room too, even when no one names them. A boy from your crew has slept here before. Another owes rent nearby. A cousin of one member keeps a trunk under the bed. A woman across the hall knows which saloon sends messages and which officer can be softened with coins. Nothing is separate. Home street crime politics, hunger and friendship are woven together like dirty threads in the same coat. You kneel and tie your bundle tighter. The cord bites into your fingers. This small act feels important, almost ceremonial. In a world where so little stays put, binding your possessions gives the illusion of control. You tuck the bundle near the wall, hidden under loose cloth. Though hidden is optimistic. Everyone knows everyone hides things. The trick is making your small treasures seem too boring to steal. A baby begins to cry behind the curtain. The sound is thin at first, then insistent. Its mother murmurs softly, a stream of tired comfort. You cannot see her face, but you hear the exhaustion in her voice, and something in it slows you. For all the swagger waiting outside, for all the corners claimed and rivalries nursed like small fires, this is where most lives begin and end, in cramped rooms with someone trying to hush a child before the neighbours lose patience. You stand again and smooth your coat. The morning light has strengthened a little. It reveals dust floating through the room like tiny pale insects. Down below, a wheel hits a rut and the whole building seems to flinch. You have no real privacy, no real safety, and no guarantee that your sleeping place will still be yours by nightfall. But for now, this room is the nearest thing you have to shelter. So you step back into the hall, carrying the smell of straw smoke and human closeness with you. The stairs wait. The street calls. Hunger has likely started its own little speech in your belly, and it is rarely a subtle speaker. By the time you reach the doorway again, hunger has become less of a feeling and more of a companion. It walks with you, taps your ribs from the inside, and offers helpful little reminders that yesterday's meal was not exactly a banquet. A crust of bread, a bite of something fried in old grease, and a swallow of beer thin enough to insult both grain and water. Very nourishing naturally. A modern dietitian would probably faint into a pamphlet. You step onto the street and let the morning gather around you. The air is damp with a heavy smell of horse manure, wood smoke, rotting scraps, and bread from a vendor's basket somewhere up the way. That bread smell is cruel. It threads itself through the stink like a ribbon of possibility, and your stomach responds with an enthusiasm that your purse cannot support. In 1850s, New York cheap food is everywhere and nowhere at once. The city is growing fast, pulling in workers, immigrants, sailors, labourers, widows, orphans, and men who've learned to survive by standing near opportunity until it drops something. Street vendors sell apples, oysters, hot corn pies, rolls, and other small comforts to people who cannot afford to sit in a proper dining room. Oysters, strangely enough, are one of the most common cheap foods in the city, sold from stalls, carts, cellars, and saloons. It is hard to imagine now when oysters seem to arrive with white plates and tiny forks. But here they are, working people's food, briny and slippery and sometimes suspiciously warm. You pause near a woman with a basket of rolls covered by cloth. Steam rises when she lifts the corner, and for a moment the world narrows to that soft white breath. Her face is sharp with calculation. She knows hunger when she sees it. Everyone here does. Hunger has a posture, a way of looking too long without wanting to look desperate. You ask the price, she names it. You make a face as if offended on principle, though the true offence is that you have almost no money. A little bargaining follows, soft and practiced, less a debate than a ritual. She gives you a roll slightly smaller than the others, and you accept it as if you have won. The outside is tough, the inside warm enough to feel generous. You eat slowly because if you eat fast it vanishes and then your body remembers the problem. Around you other breakfasts happen in fragments. A boy gnaws at an apple bruised nearly brown. A dockhand drinks coffee so black and bitter it seems designed to punish sleep for leaving him. A woman buys scraps from a butcher wrapped in paper already damp at the edges. A child stares at a pie stall with a gaze so fixed it almost becomes a prayer. Hunger teaches you how to read people. The well-fed move differently. They are not always rich, but they possess a softness of pace. A faith that another meal will arrive. Down here, meals are not assumed. They are hunted, earned, borrowed, shared, stolen, stretched, watered down and remembered. A bowl of stew may be mostly broth, but if it is hot and there is a potato in it, people speak of it kindly. A mainstream historical fact to hold close is that the Irish potato famine of the 1840s sent huge numbers of Irish immigrants to New York, many arriving with deep memories of starvation and displacement. By the 1850s, these memories shape neighborhood life in ways you can feel, even if nobody speaks of them directly. Food is not really food. Bread is dignity. Meat is celebration. A full pot is security. A wasted crust is almost sinful. You pass a cellar-eating house where the smell changes from street filth to boiling bones, onions, and damp brick. Steps lead downward into a low room glowing with smoky lamplight. Men sit at rough tables, shoulders hunched, spoons moving. You can hear the scrape of tin, the low murmur of voices, the occasional cough. The food is cheap, and cheap means compromised. Thin soup, old bread, coffee stretched beyond mercy, but it is warm and warmth has value. You do not enter yet. You count your coins again, though counting them does not multiply them. A tragic flaw in the system, really. Instead, you stand near the entrance and watch who goes in and who comes out. A member of your gang, or nearly your gang, leans against the wall nearby, chewing something with lazy confidence. His cap sits low. His eyes flick to you, then to your roll, then away. He does not ask for a bite. Asking would make him look needy. Instead, he says you took your time coming down. The words are plain, but the meaning curls beneath them. Where were you? Who saw you? Are you still one of us? This is how loyalty often begins, not with grand oaths and candle-lit rooms, but with small tests before breakfast. You shrug and say something about rent stairs and the landlord being born specifically to ruin mornings. He snorts. That counts as laughter. You tear off a piece of roll and offer it without making a performance of generosity. He accepts it the same way. Casual, almost bored. Yet the exchange matters. A bite of bread can be a tiny treaty. Historians still dispute whether youthful gang members in neighborhoods like 5 Points joined mainly because of poverty, ethnic rivalry, political manipulation, or the simple need for companionship. As you stand there sharing a roll, the answer feels less tidy. Hunger pushes, pride pulls, fear closes doors, friendship opens one or two, and somewhere inside all that a boy becomes attached to a corner, a name, a crew, a style of walking, a future smaller than he imagined, but larger than being alone. A quirky tidbit from the old city is that New York's oyster cellars were sometimes open deep into the night and could serve as casual meeting places for everyone from labourers to actors to thieves to politicians with their hats pulled low. Not every oyster cellar was wicked, of course. Some were just places to eat. But in a city that loves mixing business with appetite, a bowl, a shell, and a whispered arrangement could sit very close together. Your companion nods toward the market streets. There may be work there, he says, or there may be a chance to help unload a cart before anyone official notices who is helping and who is helping themselves. That is the line you walk. Hunger makes the line blurry. Not invisible, never that. You know when something is theft. You know when something is just survival wearing theft's coat. But knowing does not always fill the stomach. You move together through the morning press. Wheels grind over stones. Horses toss their heads and steam in the cool air. Vendors call out with voices trained by competition. Hot corn, fresh rolls, apples, tripe, coffee. The words overlap until they become music of a sort, a market hymn for people who cannot afford the better pews. At a corner, a woman sells roasted chestnuts from a little brazier. The smoke smells sweet and woody. You slow without meaning to. She stirs the nuts with a blackened spoon and the shells click softly. That sound stays with you. Small, dry, comforting. For a moment you imagine having enough coins to buy a paper twist full of them and eat without counting each bite. A modest dream, yes, but the city has trained you to keep dreams portable. A group of younger children trail a baker's cart hoping something falls. One boy bends quickly and snatches a bit of broken crust from the gutter. He blows on it, wipes it against his sleeve, and eats. No one laughs. There are some humiliations too common to be funny. Your gang companion notices you watching. He says the boy is quick, could be useful in a year, maybe less. You feel the remark settle uneasily. That is how the neighbourhood recruits itself. Not always with threats, often with observation. Who is hungry? Who is brave? Who can run? Who lies well? Who shares? Who takes? Who can be ashamed and keep moving? You finish the last of the roll and lick the crumbs from your thumb. The taste is already fading, but the feeling remains, the brief warmth in your belly, the small proof that morning has not defeated you yet. Breakfast here is not a pause before the day. It is the first negotiation with it. And as you turn toward the busier streets where cart stalls and chants all crowd together, you understand that every meal's more than food. It is reputation. It is loyalty. It is debt. It is the quiet question of what you will do and who you will stand beside when hunger returns. You leave the market smells behind only slightly, because nothing in this part of the city ever fully disappears. It clings, it settles into cloth, into hair, into the seams of your coat. And speaking of your coat, you tug it closer now, not because of the cold, but because of what it says about you. Clothing here is not simply about covering yourself, it is a language quiet but unmistakable. The cut of your jacket, the tilt of your cap, the state of your boots, even the way you let a scarf hang loose or tight, all of it speaks before you do. You might not realize it at first, but others read you quickly, faster than you read them. Your coat is worn patched at the elbow with fabric that does not quite match. Someone with a sharper eye could trace its history through those stitches. Your boots are scuffed, but solid enough to run, in which matters more than appearance. Your trousers are a little too short, exposing the edge of your socks, but that is common enough. Perfection is suspicious here. Too clean, too new, too fine, and people start asking questions you do not want answered. In the 1850s, many working-class New Yorkers relied on second-hand clothing markets, particularly in Lower Manhattan, where garments passed through many hands before reaching you. Some pieces had belonged to sailors, others to labourers, some even to the dead. It is a strange thought, wearing something that may have seen another life entirely. But in this neighbourhood you do not dwell on that too long. Cloth is cloth. Warmth is warmth. Your cap sits low, not just to keep the sun out of your eyes, but to shape your expression. A lowered brim can make you seem uninterested, harder to read, less inviting to trouble. Or more inviting, depending on who is looking. That is the trick. You're always adjusting, always performing a version of yourself that fits the moment. Your gang has its own subtle marks, nothing too obvious, nothing that would invite immediate trouble from rivals or police, but enough that those who know. A certain way of folding a neckerchief, a preference for a particular colour woven into a sleeve or lining. Even the way you lace your boots can carry meaning. It is not uniform, not in the strict sense, but it binds you visually to others. You pass a shop window, the glass slightly warped, reflecting a version of you that feels both familiar and distant. You pause for just a second, not long enough to draw attention, but long enough to take stock. Your shoulders are set in a way they were not months ago. Your stance has changed. There is a looseness now, a readiness. You look like someone who expects the street to push back and is prepared to push in return. Nearby, a group of young men lean against a wall, their clothes telling a similar story. One has a brighter scarf than the rest, a touch of flair that borders on risky. Another keeps his coat buttoned high, hiding something beneath, perhaps a knife, perhaps just the suggestion of one. They glance at you quick and measuring. You glance back just as quick. Nothing is said, everything is understood. A lesser-known detail from the time is that certain gangs took pride in distinctive styles, sometimes exaggerating elements of dress to stand out. The Bowery boys, for instance, were known for their tall hats, flashy shirts, and a kind of exaggerated swagger that turned the street into a stage. It was not just fashion, it was identity, performance, even intimidation. You are not quite that bold, not yet. Your style leans toward blending in just enough, While still signalling where you belong, it is a careful balance. Too plain and you look like an outsider, too bold and you become a target. A woman passes you, her dress faded but neatly kept. She carries herself with a kind of quiet dignity that cuts through the grime. You notice how she adjusts her shawl, how she avoids certain patches of street without breaking stride. Clothing does not only mark gangs, it marks survival strategies, personal histories, choices made under pressure. There is ongoing discussion among historians about how much clothing in neighborhoods like this reflected choice versus necessity. Did people dress to express identity or simply to make do with what they had? Standing here, it feels like both. You choose within limits. You shape what you can from what is available. Your companion from earlier nudges you, pointing out a man across the street. His coat is too fine for this block, his boots polished, his hat unscuffed. He stands out immediately like a clean page in a dirty book. You watch him carefully. Men like that either have business here or are about to learn why they should not. The man glances around uncertain. His hand grips a small bag tighter than necessary. You can almost feel the tension radiating from him. He's out of place and everyone knows it. Whether anyone acts on that knowledge is another matter. You adjust your cap, again a small, almost unconscious motion. It signals to your companion that you have noticed that you are paying attention. These silent exchanges build trust. Words are not always needed. Further down the street, a group of boys play at fighting, mimicking the older gangs with exaggerated moves and shouted insults. Their clothes are even more mismatched, patched beyond recognition. Yet even they have begun to adopt certain styles, certain gestures. The imitation is not perfect, but it is close enough to show where they are headed. You remember being that young? Or perhaps you do not remember clearly, because life here moves quickly. Childhood fades into something harder before you have time to mark the transition. One day you are watching. The next you are part of what you watched. A tailor's shop sits on the corner, its window displaying garments far beyond your reach. The fabrics are smoother, the cuts sharper. For a moment you imagine wearing something like that, how it would feel, how others would look at you. Respect, perhaps, or suspicion. It is difficult to separate the two. You move on, the thought slipping away as quickly as it came. Dreams like that are dangerous if you hold them too long. They make your current reality feel heavier. Your boots strike the ground with a steady rhythm now. You are more awake, more present. The street has accepted you for the moment, or at least decided not to challenge you. That can change at any time, of course. It often does. You pass a puddle and catch another glimpse of yourself distorted by ripples. For a second, the image shifts your features, blurred your outline uncertain. It feels fitting. Identity here is not fixed. It bends, adapts, reshapes itself depending on who you stand beside and who stands against you. Your companion mentions a meeting later. Nothing formal, just a gathering of your group. There will be talk, perhaps plans, perhaps nothing more than sharing news and watching for signs of trouble. You nod, committing it to memory. Clothing will matter there too. Not just what you wear, but how you wear it. Confidence, carelessness, attention to detail. All of it will be noticed even if no one comments directly. As you continue down the street, the city stretches ahead, layered and restless. Your coat brushes against others as you pass, a constant reminder of proximity, of shared space. You adjust it once more, settling it on your shoulders like a kind of armor, because that is what it is in a way. Not protection from blades or fists perhaps, but from being unseen, from being misread, from being alone in a place that rarely forgives those who stand without a signal. And as the morning deepens, you carry that signal with you, stitched into every thread, every fold, every careful choice that tells the world quietly but clearly who you are becoming. By the time you reach the place where the others gather, the morning has lost its softness. The street is brighter now, and brightness does not make it kinder. It only reveals more details. The cracked bricks, the damp hems of women's skirts, the greasy shine on the stones, the thin faces watching from doorways. You move through all of it with your coat settled on your shoulders and your cap low, carrying the little signals you have learned to wear. The meeting place is not grand. Nothing about it announces itself. It is a stretch of wall near a narrow alley close enough to the main street to watch movement far enough from it to speak without every passerby hearing. A broken barrel sits beside the wall. Someone has carved initials into the wood. Someone else has scratched them out. The city is full of tiny monuments to people who want to be remembered, even if only by irritating the next person who leans there. 3 of your crew are already waiting. One is older than you by only a few years, though he carries those years like a veteran carries medals. His name matters less than his presence. He has the calm, watchful look of someone who has survived mistakes and now prefers letting others make them first. Another sits on the barrel, tapping his heel against the boards. The third eats something wrapped in paper and looks as if he would deny it even while chewing. You nod. They nod back. It seems simple, but nothing here is simple. Every greeting has weight. Too eager and you seem weak. Too cold and you seem proud. Pride is useful in measured doses like medicine, but too much can poison a room very quickly. You stand where you are expected to stand, not in the centre, not at the edge, somewhere in between, which is exactly where your place in the group remains. You're not new enough to be ignored, not established enough to speak first. This is one of the first rules, though. Nobody writes it down. Know your place before the others remind you. The older one asks where you have been. His tone is mild. That is rarely comforting. You answer with care. Room rent, breakfast, market. Nothing too detailed. Details invite hooks. A simple answer lets the conversation move on. He studies you for half a breath, then looks away, and you feel the small relief of passing a test that was never openly named. Gang life in 1850s. New York often overlapped with neighborhood identity fire companies, political clubs, and informal protection networks. Groups did not always sit neatly in the modern category of criminal organization. They might fight, intimidate voters, guard saloons, assist ward politicians, settle grudges, or simply gather young men who had few better places to belong. You learn that quickly. The gang is not only what it does, it is where you stand when the city asks who will stand with you. Rules arrive through stories. Nobody hands you a code. Instead, you hear what happened to the boy who spoke too freely near arrival. You hear about the man who failed to repay a favour and found every door closed to him. You hear about the fool who boasted in a saloon and drew attention from police at precisely the wrong time. These stories are bedtime tales for people who do not expect gentle dreams. The first rule is loyalty, but loyalty here is less noble than it sounds. It means you do not name names. You do not leave a companion surrounded. You do not pretend not to see trouble when trouble involves your own. Still, loyalty has limits, and everyone knows it. A starving man may betray. A frightened one may talk. A proud one may cause damage just to prove he can. So loyalty is tested again and again through small requests that feel casual until you understand they are not. Carry this message. Watch that corner. Walk with him. Say nothing about what you saw. Lend a coin. Return a coin. Stand nearby while someone speaks to someone else. None of it seems large. All of it matters. There are those who maintain that the so-called rules of gangs in this period were less formal than later legend suggests, shaped more by custom, reputation, and immediate need than by written hierarchy. From inside the alley's shadow that sounds right, you do not need parchment when shame, fear, hunger, and pride can do the writing for you. The second rule is respect, though this too has teeth. Respect means knowing when to lower your eyes and when not to. It means understanding that an insult cannot always be ignored, because if it is ignored too publicly, it becomes permission. The city watches, the street remembers. A small humiliation can grow legs and follow you for weeks. One of the boys on the barrel laughs and calls another by a nickname he dislikes. The air shifts, not dramatically, no violins, no thunder, no convenient warning, from a narrator who has your best interests at heart. Just a pause, the kind of pause in which everyone measures distance and mood. The older one says the nickname softly, not as a joke, but as a warning to leave it there. The boy on the barrel shrugs and lets it pass. A wise decision. We do enjoy personal growth before noon. You learn another rule from this: humour is allowed. Mockery is dangerous. The difference is not always clear until too late. A curious little detail from the era is that some gangs and neighbourhood toughs adopted names that sound almost theatrical now, like the Dead Rabbits, Plug Uglies, Shirt Tails and Roach Guards. Whether every name belonged to a stable group or some were exaggerated by newspapers remains uncertain, but the names mattered. They turned ordinary poverty into legend, and legend is a kind of clothing too. You can wear it when your actual coat has holes. Your own group has a name people say carefully. Not famous, perhaps not destined for newspapers, but known within a few streets. That is enough. A name can protect you. It can also summon trouble from someone eager to test it. The third rule is usefulness. You may be liked, but liking is not enough. Can you run? Can you keep watch? Can you talk your way past a suspicious clerk? Can you carry a bundle without asking what is inside? Can you be still when stillness matters? Can you fight if cornered? Can you avoid fighting if the odds are stupid? That last talent is underappreciated, especially among young men allergic to wisdom. You are still learning where you fit. You are quick enough, quiet when needed. Not the strongest, but not helpless. You notice things that may prove valuable. You know who waters his whiskey, which patrolman looks away at the right time, which vendor keeps coins in a box under the left side of the stall. Observation is a weapon that does not clatter when dropped. The older one sends you with another boy to deliver a few words to a saloon keeper. Nothing written. Written messages can be found. Spoken ones can be denied. If your face is convincing and your memory loyal, the words are simple, but you repeat them inwardly as you walk, careful not to alter their order. A changed phrase can change meaning. A changed meaning can change your evening. As you leave the alley, you feel the pull of the group behind you. It is not warmth exactly, but it resembles it from a distance. They know your name. They notice your absence. They expect things from you. In a neighbourhood where many people vanish into hunger sickness jail, or the docks without much ceremony being expected, can feel almost like being loved. Almost, but every bond has a hook. Every favour becomes a thread. Every thread ties you tighter. You step into the moving street with the message in your head, your boots steady, your stomach still not full, and your place in the world slightly clearer than it was at dawn. You are learning the gang's rules, not from speeches, not from papers, but from pauses, glances, debts, jokes, warnings, and the heavy silence that follows a mistake. And as you walk toward the saloon, you begin to understand that belonging is not a door you pass through once. It is something you must keep proving one small act at a time. The saloon keeper receives the message with a face so blank it might as well have been carved from old soap. He wipes the counter with a cloth that has long ago stopped improving anything, then nods once. That is all. No dramatic whisper, no mysterious exchange of envelopes, no candle-lit conspiracy. Just a nod, a stained counter, and the smell of beer tobacco and yesterday's spilled decisions. You do not linger. Lingering makes people wonder whether you expected payment, praise, or more information. All three can be unhealthy ambitions, so you step back into the daylight, where the street is busier now, louder, and already leaning toward noon. Hunger has quieted, but only because it is conserving strength for later. Your pockets remain light. Your body knows this. Your pride pretends not to. Work is the next question, and in this city the question rarely has a clean answer. Honest work exists, yes, but it does not always exist for you today. It appears in scraps, in lucky openings, in a foreman's mood, in a dock, boss needing one more pair of hands, in a cart stuck in mud in a market stall, too crowded for one man to manage. Work comes briefly, then disappears before you can trust it. You head toward the river with another boy from the crew, passing through streets that change character almost block by block. The air sharpens as you near the docks. Salt pushes through the usual city stink, mingling with tar-fish wet rope, coal smoke, and the sour odour of bilge water. Gulls wheel overhead, screaming like they have been personally offended by the entire human experiment. The waterfront is a world of its own. Ships crowd the slips, their masts rising like a bare forest against the sky. Men haul barrels, crates, sacks, trunks, and bundles. Horses strain. Chains clank. Wooden wheels thump over planks. Sailors shout in accents from everywhere, and for a moment you feel the size of the world pressing against Manhattan's edge. Liverpool, Havana, New Orleans, Bremen. Cork, all of them seem to arrive here in rope, canvas, sweat, and cargo. By the 1850s, New York has become the busiest port in the United States, a central artery for immigration trade and coastal shipping. That fact is not written on a sign for you. It is written in the bruised shoulders of labourers, the crowded piers, the endless lists of goods, and the tired faces of passengers stepping onto land with hope, fear, and bags that look too small to hold a whole life. You stand where casual labourers gather and wait to be chosen. Waiting is its own kind of labour. You shift your weight, trying to look strong but not troublesome, eager but not desperate. The men doing the hiring walk past as if browsing livestock. A hand points. You, not you may be him. If selected, you may earn enough for food and rent. If not, the afternoon stretches thin. Your companion gets picked first. He grins, but not too much. Then a foreman looks you over and asks if you can lift. You say yes, because the answer to that question is always yes, even if your spine files a private objection. Soon you are carrying crates slick with moisture, your fingers aching around rough wood. The weight pulls at your shoulders. The pier boards flex beneath your boots. Someone curses as a barrel shifts. Someone else laughs too loudly at nothing. There is dignity in the work, but not comfort. You move with a line of men, load after load, breath after breath. Your coat grows warm. Sweat gathers under your cap. Splinters bite your palms. Each crate becomes the same crate, each step the same step, until time blurs into effort. The pay will not match the pain. It rarely does. Still coin earned openly has a different feel in the hand. It sits there with fewer shadows. Of course, shadows are never far. A crate breaks, a few small items spill near your boot. Nothing valuable, perhaps not. A man beside you covers the scatter with his body while another bends as if tying a lace. Nobody speaks, nobody sees. You understand instantly that the docks have their own customs, and not every missing object is mourned with equal vigour. You do not take anything. Not this time. You're still new enough to worry about eyes. Also sensible enough to know that theft from the wrong shipment can bring more trouble than profit. Survival is not just daring. It is choosing which temptation is too expensive. There is a less famous detail about dockside labour that would almost be funny if it were not exhausting. Some men waited hours for a job that lasted less than an hour, while others worked until their hands shook, depending entirely on ship's tides, cargo, and the preference of bosses who might not remember their names. Imagine building your financial plan around a man pointing at you before lunch. Very stable, very modern. We should all be so blessed. When the job ends, you receive a few coins pressed into your dirty palm. You close your fingers around them before anyone can count too carefully. The amount is small, but it changes the day. A coin means food. 2 coins mean a little choice. More than that means someone may ask where you got them. You and your companion leave the pier, shoulders sore, walking more slowly now. The city feels different after labour. Not kinder exactly, but more negotiable. You've earned something. Your body can prove it. Your palms are red and scratched. Your shirt sticks to your back. The river wind cools you through the fabric, making you shiver pleasantly. Yet the honest coin in your pocket does not free you from the gang. If anything, it folds back into the web. A portion may go toward rent, a portion toward food. A portion may be lent gamble spent in a saloon or offered in quiet repayment of an old favour. Money here moves quickly because need moves quicker. Some researchers continue to question where the boundary lay between casual labour, organised street crime and political muscle in these neighbourhoods. For you, the boundary feels less like a wall and more like fog. The same boy who unloads barrels may watch a corner at night. The same man who carries legal cargo may help move stolen goods after dark. The same saloon that offers drink to workers may pass messages for ward leaders and gangs. Life does not sort itself into neat boxes just because later readers appreciate tidy categories. You pass a market wagon stalled near a rut. The driver swears at the wheel. A few boys hover nearby offering help with bright, false innocence. You know the method. One helps, one distracts, one removes something small from the back. The driver may lose a turnip, a loaf, a cloth bundle, perhaps nothing at all if he watches well. Today you keep walking. Your pockets have coins, and coins make virtue easier. Briefly, the afternoon presses down. You take food from a stall, something hot wrapped in paper greasy enough to shine through. You eat as you walk. The taste is heavy, salty, wonderful. Your companion talks about a possible errand. Later, something involving a cart, a back door, and not asking too many questions. You listen without committing. That too is a skill. You think of the docks behind you, of all that movement, all that cargo, the city feeding on labour it barely notices. Men like you lift and drag and carry, then vanish into alleys when the work is done. Tomorrow the port will need more hands. Tomorrow it may not choose yours. So you drift back inland toward the streets that know your name with sore muscles, and a few coins feeling the uneasy balance of the day. Honest work has touched you. So as opportunity of another kind, neither has claimed you completely. And as the river smell fades behind the thicker odours of 5 Points, you understand that work, when work exists, is not a path out by itself. It is a pause, a breath, a temporary answer. The next question is already waiting in the clatter ahead. The streets draw you back in like a tide that never truly recedes. After the docks, the Bowery feels almost theatrical, as if someone has turned up the brightness and added a layer of performance to everything. The buildings stand a little taller here, the storefronts a little louder, the faces a little more expressive. It is not safer, it is simply more dressed up. You walk beside your companion, your boots tapping a steady rhythm against the stone, and you begin to notice the shift in atmosphere. Music leaks from open doorways, not refined music, but lively, sharp, full of fiddle drums and voices that carry without permission. Laughter follows it, sometimes genuine, sometimes forced. The Bowery is where people come to forget, or at least to try. Gas lamps still hang above the street, even in daylight, their glass smudged, waiting for evening, when they will glow and cast everything in a soft, misleading warmth. At night, this place will look almost inviting. Now, in the honest light of day, you see the cracks, the peeling paint, the men sleeping in corners, the women watching carefully from doorways. A theatre stands ahead, its entrance framed by posters advertising melodramas and comic acts. The illustrations are bold, exaggerated, promising excitement, romance, and danger in equal measure. Inside, for a small price, you can sit among a crowd and watch stories unfold that feel larger and cleaner than your own. For a few hours, you can be someone else, or at least pretend. Entertainment like this grew rapidly in New York during the mid-19th century, especially along the Bowery, where working-class audiences filled theatres catered to their tastes. The performances were often loud, interactive, even chaotic, with audiences shouting, cheering, and sometimes throwing things if displeased. It is not the quiet, polite experience some might imagine. It is closer to a shared release. You linger outside the theatre just long enough to hear a line delivered with a dramatic flair from within. The crowd responds with a mix of cheers and mockery. You smile despite yourself. There is something comforting in the predictability of it. Heroes, villains, clear endings. Life rarely offers such neat conclusions. Further along, saloons line the street, their doors swinging open and shut as people move in and out. The smell of alcohol, tobacco, and sweat hangs thick in the air. Inside, men gather around tables, talking, arguing, laughing too loudly. A piano plays somewhere slightly out of tune but enthusiastic. Glasses clink, chairs scrape. It is a world of noise and movement, a place where time seems to loosen its grip. You step into one briefly more for the atmosphere than anything else. The floor is sticky underfoot. The bar is worn smooth by countless hands. The bartender barely looks up as he serves another drink. You nod to a few familiar faces receiving nods in return. Recognition here is currency. It does not buy much, but it keeps you from being entirely alone. There is a lesser-known habit among some regulars of the Bowery to form informal clubs within these saloons. Groups that meet regularly share news and sometimes act together when needed. These gatherings blur the line between socializing and organizing. A drink becomes a discussion becomes a plan. You do not stay long. Too much time in one place invites attention, and attention is not always friendly. As you step back outside, the light feels sharper, the noise more defined. Your companion mentions a dance hall nearby, a place where music and movement blend into something almost joyful. The dance hall is crowded even in the afternoon. Couples move across the floor, their steps quick and practiced. The music is lively, pulling at your feet, inviting you to join. Women in bright dresses spin and laugh, their energy cutting through the heaviness of the day. Men try to match them, some succeeding, others stumbling with good humour. You watch from the edge for a moment. It is tempting, the idea of losing yourself in movement, of letting the music carry you. But you are aware of your place, of the eyes that might be watching, of the subtle rules that govern even this space. You nod to a girl you recognise. She smiles briefly, then turns back to her partner. Places like this offer a kind of escape, but it is always temporary. The city does not forget who you are just because you dance for an hour. Still, the escape has value. It reminds you that there is more to life than survival, even if that more is fleeting. Some observers from the time noted how these entertainment venues served as social hubs, bringing together people from different backgrounds, though not always peacefully. Tensions could rise quickly, especially when alcohol and pride mixed. A wrong glance, a careless word, and the atmosphere could shift from celebration to confrontation. You sense that undercurrent even now. A man at the bar watches at another too closely. A woman pulls her companion away from a group that looks ready to argue. The music continues, but there is a tension beneath it, like a string pulled just a little too tight. You step back out into the street again, preferring the open air despite its own dangers. The Bowery stretches ahead, full of light, sound, and possibility. It is a place where you can spend what little you have and gain stories in return. Some of those stories will be worth telling, others will be better forgotten. Your companion talks about returning later when the lamps are lit and the crowds grow thicker. You nod, knowing that the night will bring its own set of choices. For now, the afternoon still holds, and there are other corners to visit, other faces to read, other chances to take or avoid. As you move on, the sounds of music and laughter follow you, for a while fading gradually into the broader noise of the city. The Bowery remains behind you, bright and tempting, a reminder that even in a place defined by hardship, there are moments of colour, moments of movement, moments that almost feel like freedom. Almost! By the time the Bowery's music fades behind you, the city has shifted again. The bright temptations remain close enough to remember, but the streets ahead feel more practical, more watchful. You have crossed out of laughter and performance into the machinery that keeps a neighbourhood like this moving. Not cleanly, not honestly, but moving all the same. You pass a corner where two policemen stand in dark uniforms, their clubs resting with casual menace. They speak to each other rather than to the street, but their eyes travel. They see the boys leaning against walls, the women carrying baskets, the men moving too quickly or too slowly. They see you as well, though whether they truly notice you is another matter. In 5 Points, being seen by the police can be dangerous. Being ignored can also be dangerous. Very thoughtful of the city to provide options. You keep your pace steady. Running would be foolish. Slowing too much would look guilty. So you walk as if you have a purpose simple enough to explain should anyone demand one. A useful skill that the innocent never realise how much practice it takes to appear innocent. New York's police system in the 1850s is not yet the tidy, centralised force later generations might imagine. The city had created a formal municipal police in the 1840s, but enforcement remained tangled with politics, local loyalties and personal arrangements. Officers knew neighbourhoods and neighbourhoods knew officers. Some men in uniform were feared, some were mocked, some were bribed. Some were avoided because they could not be bribed, which made them inconveniently moral, and therefore deeply unpopular in certain circles. You have learned the names that matter. Not every officer knows just the ones who patrol the routes near your sleeping place, the saloons where messages pass the market corners, where small thefts become either scandals or jokes. One officer likes coins, another likes information, a third likes being treated with respect so exaggerated it becomes almost theatrical. A fourth simply dislikes Irish boys, German boys, black men, poor women, and probably clouds if they gather in the wrong neighbourhood. Your companion lowers his voice as you near the corner. He tells you which one to avoid today. The taller officer has been embarrassed recently, it seems, after failing to catch a thief near a warehouse. That means he may be eager to prove himself. A policeman in search of restored pride is best treated like a dog with a sore paw. Do not touch, do not tease, do not assume reason will help. The strange thing is that police are only one layer of authority. Ward politicians are another. Their power is softer in appearance but often deeper in reach. You see one now across the street, a local man in a decent coat shaking hands with a shopkeeper. He smiles broadly, remembers names, asks after children, and gives the impression of generosity without ever quite handing over enough to harm himself. Men like him understand the neighbourhood as a map of debts. He might arrange a job, he might speak to a magistrate, he might help a widow keep her room for another week. He might also ask for a crowd on election day, a few strong arms outside a polling place, or a reminder delivered to someone thinking of voting the wrong way. Kindness here often comes with a receipt written in invisible ink. By mid-century, political machines and ward organisations were becoming essential parts of urban life, especially for immigrants who needed help navigating jobs, courts, housing, and citizenship. That help could be real. It could also be manipulative. You do not need a civics lecture to understand the arrangement. You need bread protection and someone with influence who will answer when your name is spoken. You and your companion pause near a lamppost while the ward man crosses toward your side of the street. He recognises your companion and smiles. Not warmly exactly, warmth is too simple. His smile is like a key testing a lock. He asks how the boys are. The boys, as if you're a cheerful choir and not a cluster of hungry young men who can be pointed in useful directions. Your companion answers politely. You keep quiet. The politician's eyes move to you, take in your coat, your boots, your cap, the careful stillness of your face. He asks your name. You give it. He repeats it as though placing it on a shelf in his mind. That is never free. To be remembered by a man like this can help you. It can also mean you are now available for future inconvenience. A small oddity from this political world is that election season sometimes came with food, drink, parades, banners, music, and outright spectacle. Voting could look less like a quiet civic duty and more like a street festival supervised by men who are not especially committed to peace. Free drinks were not rare. Neither were repeat voters, false names, or helpful escorts who made sure hesitant citizens found the correct ballot with the correct enthusiasm. Democracy, but with more elbows. You move on after the exchange, and only once the politician is behind you does your companion breathe out through his nose. Not fear exactly, awareness. Connections matter, but too many connections can make you feel like a fly inside a very social spider web. The police at the corner watch the politician pass without interference. That tells you something. They may not like him, they may mock him when he is gone, but they know his reach. He knows theirs. The whole arrangement is less a chain of command than a stew simmering with favours, grudges, payments, and warnings. There is lively disagreement among historians about whether corruption in this period should be understood mainly as moral failure, or as an improvised system of social support in a city growing faster than its institutions. From where you stand, the answer feels uncomfortable. Corruption feeds on people. It also sometimes feeds people. A bribe may free a guilty man, yes, but a favour may also keep a family from being thrown into the street. The same hand can steal your coin and pull you from a ditch. Very annoying, morally speaking. You pass a shop where the owner gives you a sharp look, then relaxes when he recognizes your companion. Protection works that way. Some businesses pay quietly to avoid broken windows, harassment, or theft. Others pay because the gang provides real warning when trouble is coming from elsewhere. Again, the line blurs. Are you protecting them from danger or from yourselves? A rude question, also a fair one. At another corner, a boy younger than you waits with a message. He says a patrol has moved early near a saloon where certain men plan to gather. Your companion curses softly. Plans will change, routes will shift, someone will be warned, someone else may not be warned quickly enough. Information travels like sparks through dry straw, and those who carry it gain value. You begin to understand that power in this neighborhood is not only held by those with titles. A policeman has a club, a politician has favors, a saloon keeper has rooms and ears, a gang leader has boys who can appear quickly and vanish faster. A widow with a window overlooking the right alley may know more than all of them by supper time. You walk more carefully now, not because danger has increased, but because you can see more of it. The city is full of hidden agreements. That officer who looks away is not blind. That politician who smiles is not harmless. That shopkeeper who nods is not necessarily grateful. Everyone is negotiating all day, every day with coins, silence, votes, muscle memory, and fear. The afternoon light slants across the street, catching dust in the air. Somewhere behind you, the Bowery still sings. Ahead, a patrol turns a corner. Your companion alters course without speaking, and you follow, slipping into a narrower street where laundry hangs overhead like tired flags. You are beginning to learn that protection is never simply protection. It is a bargain. It shelters and traps. It gives you a name to call on when trouble comes, but it also gives others the right to call on you. And as you move deeper into the ward, past watching windows and listening doors, you feel the city's invisible threads tightening gently around your wrists. The narrower street receives you with shade laundry and the smell of boiled cabbage drifting from an upstairs window. Shirt stockings and children's underthings hang overhead on lines stretched from building to building, dripping slowly onto the stones below. You step around the droplets as if they are weather, because here even weather can come from someone else's wash basin. Your companion moves beside you without speaking for a while. That is fine. Silence can be easier than talk, especially after passing police politicians and all those invisible bargains tugging at your sleeves. The ward is never just one thing. It is not only Irish, not only poor, not only criminal, not only immigrant, not only native-born resentment, not only hope. It is a crowded pocket of the world folded tightly into a few streets and told to make room for more. You pass a woman speaking Irish to a child, who answers in English, then gets corrected and laughs. A German baker's boy carries a basket past you, his apron dusted white, his hair damp with sweat from the ovens. A black sailor in a worn blue coat steps around a puddle with practiced grace, carrying his bundle under one arm. Near a doorway, an older Jewish peddler adjusts the straps of his pack and calls softly about needles, ribbons, buttons, and other small necessities that keep clothing and lives from falling apart. This is daily life here, not as a neat painting of diversity, but as a dense, breathing collision. People share walls, pumps, markets, alleys, gossip, sickness, music, insults, debts, and sometimes grief. They borrow from one another. They mistrust one another. They marry across lines more often than scandalized outsiders admit. And they fight across lines when fear, work, politics, or pride sharpens difference into a weapon. The great movement of people into New York during these years is visible everywhere. Irish immigration surged after the famine. German migration grew after the failed revolutions of 1848. And free black New Yorkers continued to build lives in a city that offered opportunity and hostility in the same breath. These are not abstract groups to you. They are neighbors. They are rivals. They are people whose cooking smells seep beneath your door. A German woman at a window shakes crumbs from a cloth. She sees you looking and narrows her eyes, not with hatred exactly, but with the weary suspicion of someone who knows boys like you may be trouble before noon. Fair, you have been trouble before noon. Still you nod. She does not nod back. One cannot win every diplomatic engagement. Your route takes you past a yard where children play at being soldiers, gang members, merchants and mothers, all within the same 5 minutes. Their accents shift from home to street and back again. One boy shouts an Irish insult with perfect force, though his mother is German. Another repeats a phrase in a language he barely understands because he has learned it makes adults turn their heads. Children here collect words the way pockets collect lint buttons and stolen bits of string. You hear music from an open doorway, a fiddle line rising and falling with a tenderness that makes the street briefly less hard. A few doors down, someone sings in German deep and low, perhaps a hymn, perhaps a drinking song slowed by memory. From another room comes a church melody softened by distance. These sounds overlap without asking permission. The result is messy but not unpleasant. It is the city tuning itself badly and beautifully. There is a small point often missed in cleaner histories of the neighbourhood. People did not only arrive with poverty, they arrived with skills, recipes, songs, jokes, tools, saints, grudges, habits of work and ideas about respect. The Irish labourer, the German baker, the black cartman, the Jewish peddler, the native-born Protestant shopkeeper, all bring more than their need. They bring worlds. Those worlds rub together in hallways and markets until sparks rise. You stop at a pump where several women wait with pails. The pump handle groans as one works it hard and water splashes into a bucket with a muddy metallic smell. Everyone needs water, which means everyone must share space whether they like it or not. One woman complains about another's child, another complains about the complaint. A third says nothing but smiles slightly because she has heard this quarrel before and may enjoy the rerun. You wait your turn, because shoving here would be foolish. Women at the pump possess a kind of authority that no gang boy should underestimate. They see everything. They remember everything. They can make your life unpleasant with nothing more than a few well-placed words. A man may carry a club, but a woman with neighbourhood knowledge carries a whole invisible filing cabinet. Respect the archive. When your companion fills a tin cup and hands it to you, the water tastes flat and faintly suspicious, but cool enough to satisfy. You drink slowly. A black woman nearby looks at you, then at your companion, and asks whether there will be noise tonight. Noise means fighting. Noise means men running windows, closing children, pulled indoors. Your companion says he does not know. She gives him a look that suggests she believes him only because even fools can be honest by accident. The experiences of black New Yorkers in this period are often pushed to the edge of gang stories, but they were part of the city's daily life, working as sailors, labourers, waiters, laundresses, barbers, coachmen, domestic workers and artisans while facing discrimination and periodic violence. You know some black men who move carefully through these streets, measuring danger not only from rivals and police, but from mobs, employers and laws shaped against them. You notice how much more alert they must be. You do not always understand it fully, but you see it. Your gang's world is mostly Irish and native-born in its immediate loyalties, yet the neighbourhood refuses simple boundaries. A German saloon keeper may pass information. A black porter may warn of police movement. A Jewish peddler may know which families are leaving and which rooms might open. A Yankee shopkeeper may pay protection while cursing every boy who offers it. Dependence does not require affection. It only requires need. Researchers still wrestle with how much ethnic identity shaped street gangs compared with class, neighbourhood, religion and political allegiance. From your place in the crowd, the divisions feel real but flexible. An insult may become ethnic when anger needs a sharper blade. A friendship may cross those lines when hunger needs a hand. People draw borders, then step over them for work, love, trade, drink and survival. You walk on noticing how smells change from doorway to doorway. Rye bread, fried onion, soap, beer, pickled cabbage, fish, damp wool, coal smoke, A room where incense lingers around a holy picture, another where old tobacco seems soaked into the wood itself. Each scent marks a life, a family, a memory carried across water and pressed into New York's crowded air. At a corner, a man sells small paper cones of roasted nuts, calling in English with a thick accent. He recognizes your companion and offers a nod. The nod is returned. You understand again how networks stretch beyond the gang itself. To survive here, you must know not only who is friend and enemy, but who is useful, who is fair, who cheats, who talks too much, who will hide a boy for 10 minutes, and who will sell him for 5 cents and a compliment. A quarrel breaks out behind you quick and bright as a struck match. 2 men argue over a cart blocking a passage. The words begin with traffic slide into nationality, and nearly become fists before an older woman steps between them, with a scolding so fierce both men retreat into muttering. The street relaxes, not much but enough. You keep moving, carrying the sounds with you. Different languages rise and fall. The city does not blend them smoothly. It lets them jostle, scrape, harmonize for a moment, then clash again. That is the truth of the place. It is intimate without being gentle, diverse without being peaceful, shared without being equal. And as you pass beneath the wet laundry and out toward a brighter crossing, you feel the neighborhood around you not as a single tribe, but as a crowded vessel at sea. Everyone packed together, everyone aware the boards are thin, everyone hoping the next wave breaks over someone else's side first. The street widens again, and with it comes a feeling that is harder to name but easy to sense. You're approaching a boundary, though no sign marks it. No painted line, no official notice. Just a shift in faces' posture, and the way people look at you for a fraction longer than before. Your companion slows slightly, not enough to draw attention, just enough for you to notice. You match him without thinking. This is how you learn the edges of territory, not from maps, but from movement. A group of young men stands near a corner ahead, their stance relaxed, in the way that suggests it is not relaxed at all. Their clothes resemble yours, but not quite. A different cut of coat, a different colour tucked into a sleeve, a different way of wearing the same poverty. You recognise the signals, even if no one has explained them directly. These are not your people. You do not stop. Stopping would invite conversation, and conversation here can become something else very quickly. You keep walking, eyes forward, but aware of every shift around you. Your companion mutters something under his breath, not meant for them, just enough to steady himself. The idea of gang territories in 1850s New York is less formal than later stories might suggest, but it is no less real. Certain streets, corners, and saloons are understood to belong to particular groups, even if that ownership is never written down. Cross into the wrong area at the wrong time, and you may find yourself answering questions you cannot afford to answer poorly. One of the men ahead notices you. Of course he does. People here notice everything. His gaze lingers, then flicks to your companion, then back to you. It is a calculation. Who are you? Where are you from? Are you alone? Are you worth the trouble? You feel the weight of that gaze like a hand on your shoulder. There is a peculiar detail from accounts of the time that some gangs would signal their presence not only through clothing, but through posture and movement, a kind of shared body language that marked them as belonging to one group or another. It sounds almost theatrical, but standing here it makes sense. The way you carry yourself can either smooth your path or sharpen it. Your companion gives a small nod, not friendly, not hostile, just acknowledgement. The other man does not return it, but he does not step forward either. That is something. Silence stretches for a moment that feels longer than it is. You keep walking. The tension does not vanish immediately. It follows you for a few steps like a shadow deciding whether to stay attached. Then gradually it loosens. The voices behind you resume their low conversation. No one calls us out. No one gives chase. You let out a breath you did not realize you were holding. Crossing into another group's area is not always this quiet. Sometimes it ends with wordy words, sometimes with fists, sometimes worse. Today you pass through like a ghost noticed but not claimed. That feels like a small victory, though you would not say it aloud. There is ongoing discussion among historians about how much these rivalries were driven by ethnic identity versus local pride and competition for resources. From your perspective, the reasons matter less than the results. A corner is a corner, and if it belongs to someone else, you treat it with caution regardless of why. You turn down another street angling back toward more familiar ground. The buildings look the same, yet feel different. You recognize a shopkeeper, a doorway, a broken step. The sense of belonging returns slowly like warmth after cold. Your companion finally speaks, making a quiet remark about the men you passed. Not an insult, just an observation. They have been pushing further lately, he says. Testing boundaries, seeing who will respond. You nod. You have heard similar things before, small shifts that may lead to larger ones. A glance held too long, a step taken too far, a fight that starts with words and ends with someone carried away. You recall a story told earlier about a dispute that began over nothing more than a thrown bottle and ended with several men injured and a street avoided for weeks. Stories like that travel quickly, becoming warnings, becoming part of the unspoken map you carry in your head. As you walk, you notice the subtle signs of your own territory reappearing. A mark on a wall you recognize, a familiar face leaning in a doorway, a nod that is returned without hesitation. The air feels easier to breathe, though nothing visible has changed. That is the strange power of belonging. It does not make you safe, but it makes you less alone. A boy runs past you, shouting something about a scuffle 2 streets over. The words are excited, almost thrilled. Conflict here is not only feared, it is anticipated, even sought at times. For some it breaks the monotony. For others it proves something that feels important even if it is not. You and your companion exchange a look. Not now. There are times to run toward a noise and times to let it pass. Learning the difference is part of staying alive. A man steps out of a nearby shop, wiping his hands on his apron. He glances at you, then nods. You nod back. These small exchanges build a sense of place, a network of recognition that stretches across the neighborhood. You think again about the invisible lines you just crossed. How thin they are, how powerful, how easily they can shift. Some observers have suggested that these rivalries were as much about identity and pride as they were about territory. A gang is not only a group, it is a story people tell about themselves, who they are, where they belong, who they stand against. You feel that story settling around you, not fully formed, but growing clearer with each step. The street ahead opens into a small square where a few vendors have set up their stalls. The atmosphere here is calmer, though the undercurrent remains. It always does. You slow your pace, letting the tension from earlier drain away. Your shoulders relax slightly, your breathing steadies. The city continues, indifferent to the small dramas that play out within it. And as you stand there surrounded by familiar faces and familiar signs, you understand that these invisible borders are not just lines on a map. They are lines drawn in memory, in loyalty, in fear, and in pride. You crossed one today and came back without harm. Tomorrow it might not be so simple. The square feels almost calm compared to the tension you just left behind, though. Calm here is always relative. A vendor calls out prices for apples that look better from a distance than they do up close. A woman haggles over onions with a persistence that could wear down stone. A pair of boys argue over something small and important only to them. Life continues as it always does, layered with noise and movement. You drift along the edge of the square, your senses still alert but less strained now that you are back among familiar faces. And it is here more than anywhere else that you begin to notice the women who hold this neighborhood together in ways no one writes songs about. A laundress bends over a basin near a doorway, her sleeves rolled high, arms red from scrubbing. The rhythm of her work is steady, almost hypnotic. Cloth dips, twists, slaps against wood, then dips again. Her face is set in concentration, but not unhappily. There is a kind of pride in the work, even if the work itself is endless. Nearby, a mother balances a child on her hip while speaking to another, her voice quick and firm. She keeps one eye on the conversation, one on the street, and somehow a third on the pot simmering just inside her door. You wonder how she manages it. The answer is likely simple. She has no choice. Women in neighbourhoods like 5 Points were essential to daily survival, often working as laundresses, seamstress, domestic servants, street vendors, or running small informal businesses from their homes. Their labour kept households functioning even when money was scarce and conditions were harsh. Without them, the entire system would collapse quietly and quickly. You pass a small shop where a woman stands behind the counter measuring out goods with careful precision. Her eyes are sharp, missing nothing. A man tries to argue over price and she shuts him down with a look that could freeze boiling water. He pays. Of course he pays. There is a lesser-known detail about this world, that some women also played active roles within the network surrounding gangs, whether by passing messages offering shelter, or simply knowing more than anyone else about what was happening on their street. Information is power, and information often flows through places where people gather, talk and listen. Kitchens, doorways, wash lines, and shops become centres of quiet knowledge. You notice a young woman leaning against a post, her dress brighter than most, her posture relaxed in a way that draws attention. Men glance at her. As they pass, some with interest, others with judgment. She meets their eyes without flinching. There is confidence there, but also calculation. Life has taught her how to read people quickly, how to decide who is worth engaging and who is better ignored. Not all women here have the luxury of steady work or safe circumstances. Some survive by selling what they can, including their time and company. It is not a topic people discuss openly, but it is understood. The city does not offer many options, and survival often requires choices that outsiders might find difficult to comprehend. Your companion nods to someone across the square, a woman older than the rest, her hair streaked with grey, her presence commanding without effort. She returns the nod with a slight tilt of her head. You sense immediately that she is someone to be respected, not feared in the way of a gang leader or a police officer, but respected in a deeper, quieter way. He tells you she has been here longer than most, knows everything, sees everything. If trouble is coming, she often knows before anyone else. You file that away. In a place like this, knowing who to listen to can matter as much as knowing who to avoid. There is ongoing discussion among historians about the roles women played in these environments, whether they were primarily victims of harsh conditions or active participants shaping their communities. Standing here, it is clear that they are both. They endure certainly, but they also influence, organise and sustain. A group of children runs past, laughing, their energy cutting through the heavier mood. One nearly collides with you, then darts away with a quick apology. You watch them go, noticing how the girls keep pace with the boys, equally quick, equally loud. Childhood here is brief, but while it lasts, it holds moments of pure movement and joy. You stop near a stall selling small pastries, the smell sweet and inviting. The woman behind it offers you a glance that is both businesslike and kind. You consider your coins, then decide to buy one. It is a small indulgence, but after the morning you have had, it feels earned. As you eat, the sweetness lingers a little on your tongue, a contrast to the usual flavours of the day. It reminds you that even here, even now, there are moments that feel almost normal. Almost. Your companion mentions that one of the gang's members has a sister who works nearby, helping with sewing and occasionally carrying messages. You nod, understanding how these connections extend beyond the obvious. Families, friends, neighbours, all woven into a network that supports and complicates at the same time. A man nearby raises his voice, complaining about something trivial. A woman answers him sharply, and within seconds the argument dissolves into laughter. It is a reminder that not every conflict leads to something worse. Sometimes it ends in a joke, a shared moment, a brief easing of tension. You finish the pastry and brush the crumbs from your fingers. The square continues its steady rhythm, people moving in and out, conversations starting and ending, goods changing hands. It is not peaceful, but it is alive. And as you stand there watching the women who anchor this place in ways both visible and hidden, you begin to understand that strength here does not always look like power. Sometimes it looks like persistence, like knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, like holding a household together with thread water and sheer determination. The day is not over. There are still hours to fill decisions, to make paths to choose. but for a moment you allow yourself to stand still, to observe, to take in the quiet force that moves through this neighbourhood. Because without it, nothing else would hold. The square slowly empties behind you as the afternoon stretches onward, and with each step, you feel a different kind of weight settling over the neighbourhood. It is not the sharp tension of rival streets or the loud pull of the Bowery. This is something quieter, heavier, almost invisible, until you begin to notice it everywhere. You catch it first in the air. There is a sourness that does not belong to food or animals or smoke alone. It lingers in corners, seeps from doorways, clings to damp walls. It is the smell of too many people sharing too little space of waste that has nowhere proper to go, of water that looks clear enough but carries secrets beneath its surface. You pass a narrow building where the windows are cracked open despite the chill. Inside you glimpse a room packed with bodies, some lying still, others moving slowly as if even motion requires effort. A woman sits beside a bed, her hand resting on someone's forehead. Her face is drawn tight, her eyes fixed with a kind of quiet fear. Illness moves through neighbourhoods like this with unsettling ease. In the 1850s, outbreaks of diseases such as cholera were a constant threat in New York, especially in crowded districts where sanitation was poor and clean water was not always reliable. The city's rapid growth had outpaced its ability to provide proper infrastructure, leaving many residents exposed to conditions that made sickness almost inevitable. You do not need to know the name of the disease to understand its presence. You see it in the way people step back when someone coughs too hard. You hear it in the lowered voices when certain houses are mentioned. You feel it in the tension that settles when a cart passes carrying someone who will not be coming back. Your companion slows as you pass a doorway marked with a small cloth tied to the handle. You recognize the sign. It is a warning, quiet but clear. Something inside is not right. People give such places space not out of superstition alone, but from experience. A small strange detail from accounts of the time is that many people believed foul air itself caused disease, leading them to associate bad smells with sickness. While not entirely accurate in a modern sense, it was not completely misguided either given the conditions. So people opened windows, burned herbs, carried small objects meant to ward off illness, anything that might tip the balance in their favour. You adjust your path slightly, giving the doorway a wider berth. Not out of panic, but out of habit. Everyone here learns these small adjustments, which streets feel safer, which houses to avoid, which wells to trust if any. You reach another pump, this one less crowded, and watch as a man fills a bucket. The water splashes, catching the light, looking almost clean. But appearances are unreliable. You've heard enough stories, seen enough aftermath to know that what looks safe is not always so. There is ongoing discussion among historians about how much people of this era understood about disease transmission. While germ theory had not yet been widely accepted, observations about patterns of illness were common. People noticed that certain areas were worse than others, that certain conditions seemed to invite sickness. They did what they could with the knowledge available. You move on, passing a group gathered outside a building, their voices low. Someone inside is not well. A child clings to a woman's skirt, peering up at the faces around him. He does not fully understand, but he feels the shift. Children always do. Further down, a man sits on a stoop, his head in his hands. No one approaches him directly, but a woman leaves a small bundle beside him without a word. Bread, perhaps, or something else. It is a quiet act, easily missed, but it carries weight. Even here, even in a place defined by struggle, people find ways to care for one another. You think back to the room you left this morning, the close air, the shared space, the constant presence of others. It is not just uncomfortable, it is dangerous in ways that are not always visible. A cough can become something more. A fever can spread, a single case can turn into many. Your companion mentions a place where people say the water is better, though it is further away. Some walk the extra distance. Others cannot afford the time or the effort. Survival often comes down to such choices. Do you risk the nearer source or spend precious energy seeking something safer that may not truly be safe at all? You pass a small mission house, its door open. A few people gathered inside. A woman in simple clothing speaks softly to them, offering what comfort she can. There are efforts scattered and uneven to address the conditions here. Some come from religious groups, others from individuals who have seen enough suffering to want to change it. The results are mixed, but the intention is there. A curious aspect of these efforts is how they are sometimes received. Help can be welcome, but it can also be viewed with suspicion. Outsiders often arrive with ideas about how things should be, not always understanding how things are. Trust is not given easily, especially when it comes with expectations or judgment. You pause for a moment, watching the scene inside the mission. The people there listen, some nodding, others simply sitting, perhaps too tired to respond. It's a different kind of gathering than the ones you are used to. Quieter, more hopeful perhaps, though hope here is always cautious. The street beyond continues its steady flow. Life does not stop for illness. It bends around, it adjusts, carries on. Vendors still call out. Children still run. Men still argue and laugh. The presence of disease is woven into the fabric of daily life, not as a constant crisis, but as an ever-present possibility. You take a breath, aware now of the air in a way you were not before. It feels heavier, though perhaps that is your imagination, or perhaps it is simply awareness. As you walk, you notice more signs. A window left open despite the cold, a door kept closed when others are not, a group speaking in hushed tones. Each detail adds to the picture a quiet map of where sickness has touched and where it might spread next. Your companion glances at you as if to check that you are keeping up, not just in step but in understanding. You nod slightly. You are learning not just the visible rules of the street but the hidden ones as well. Because survival here is not only about avoiding fights or earning coins, it is about navigating a landscape where danger can be as small as a drop of water or as subtle as a shared breath. And as the afternoon light begins to soften, you carry that knowledge with you, another layer added to the many you must balance each day. The air shifts again as you move past the mission house, the quiet murmur of voices fading behind you. Ahead, the sound of bells begins to carry through the streets. Not loud at first, but steady, rhythmic, almost soothing. It draws your attention without demanding it, like a reminder rather than a command. Sunday has a different feeling in this part of the city, though the difference is subtle. The same streets, the same buildings, the same people. Yet something in the pace slows just enough to notice. Not everyone rests, of course. Work continues where it must. Hunger does not take a day off. But there is a sense, faint and uneven, that the day carries a different weight. You follow the sound of the bells toward a small church set back slightly from the street. Its exterior is plain, its door open wide. People move in and out, some dressed a little more carefully than usual, others unchanged. Inside you glimpse rows of benches, a figure at the front speaking, hands raised in quiet emphasis. Religious life in mid-19th century New York played a significant role in many communities, especially among immigrants who brought their traditions with them. Churches, missions, and religious societies often provided not only spiritual guidance, but also practical support, offering food, shelter, education, and a sense of belonging in an unfamiliar city. You stand near the entrance for a moment, unsure whether to step inside. The voices within are calm, measured, carrying a tone that feels almost foreign compared to the noise outside. Words about patience, about redemption, about enduring hardship. You wonder how those ideas fit with the life you are learning to live. Your companion shifts beside you, clearly less interested. He glances down the street, then back at the doorway, as if weighing whether there is any advantage to being seen here. Reputation matters even in places meant for reflection. A curious observation from visitors at the time is that many mission houses and churches in neighborhoods like 5 Points attracted large crowds, not only for religious reasons, but because they offered warmth, community, and sometimes food or clothing. Attendance could be as much about survival as it was about belief. You notice a woman stepping out, her face thoughtful, her posture straighter than when she entered. Behind her, a man lingers, listening to the final words before turning away. Not everyone leaves changed, but some do, even if only for a while. There is an ongoing conversation among historians about the extent to which religious reform movements truly influence behaviour in these districts. Some argue that they provided meaningful support and guidance, while others suggest their impact was limited by the overwhelming conditions people faced daily. From where you stand, it seems that both perspectives hold truth. You take a step closer to the doorway just enough to hear more clearly. The speaker inside talks about choices, about the paths people take and the possibility of turning towards something better. It is a comforting idea, though also a complicated one. Choices here are rarely simple. Paths are often blocked before you even see them. A man near the entrance notices you and offers a small nod, inviting but not insistent. You return the gesture but do not enter. Not today. Perhaps another time, or perhaps not. The thought lingers briefly, then fades as the street reclaims your attention. You move on, the sound of the bells continuing behind you. It blends with the other noises, becoming part of the city's constant hum. For a moment you feel a strange calm, as if the rhythm has settled something inside you. Further along you pass another gathering, this one less formal. A group of men stands outside a different building, talking loudly, their conversation filled with jokes and occasional bursts of laughter. The contrast is striking. Two spaces, two moods, both existing side by side. Your companion gestures toward them, making a remark about how quickly some people leave the church, only to return to their usual habits. There is a hint of humour in his voice, but also something else. Perhaps skepticism, perhaps understanding. You consider the idea of change, of stepping away from the life you're beginning to know. It is not impossible. People do it. You have heard stories. But those stories often come with conditions, with support, with opportunities that are not always available to everyone. A small lesser-known detail is that some reformers attempted to reach gang members directly organising events, lectures, and even outings meant to provide alternatives to street life. The success of these efforts varied widely depending on timing, trust, and the willingness of individuals to engage. You pass a group of children playing near the curb, their game involving sticks and a ball made from rags. They laugh, shout, and argue over rules that shift with each turn. For them, the day holds fewer burdens, at least for now. Watching them, you feel a brief sense of distance from your own concerns. The street opens into a slightly wider area where a few vendors have set up even on this quieter day. Life continues, commerce persists, and the need for goods does not pause for reflection. You stop for a moment, leaning against a wall, letting the sounds and sights settle around you. The bells have stopped now, leaving a lingering echo. The calm you felt begins to fade, replaced by the familiar awareness of your surroundings. Your companion looks at you as if expecting you to say something. You do not. Some thoughts are better kept inside, especially when they are not yet fully formed. Because the question of who you are becoming is not one you can answer in a single moment. It unfolds slowly, shaped by choices, circumstances, and the people around you. And as you push yourself away from the wall and continue down the street, the memory of the bells stays with you, a quiet note beneath the louder rhythms of the day. The quieter tone of the day does not last long. It rarely does. By the time you turn onto a broader street, the energy has shifted again, rising into something louder, sharper, almost festive in a way that feels slightly dangerous. Voices carry further. Groups cluster more tightly. There is a sense of anticipation in the air, as if something is about to happen, or already has. Your companion glances ahead and gives a small knowing smile. Election day. It does not look like the careful, orderly process you might imagine. There are no neat lines, no hushed rooms filled with quiet concentration. Instead, the street itself becomes the stage. Men gather in clusters, talking loudly, arguing, laughing, shouting over one another. Banners hang from windows. Someone has set up a makeshift stand where drinks are being handed out with suspicious generosity. Voting in mid-19th century New York was a public and often chaotic affair. Ballots were not secret in the way they are today, and political parties printed their own tickets which voters would submit openly. This made influence, persuasion, and intimidation far easier to apply. You move closer, drawn by the noise. A group of men stands near a table, each holding slips of paper, urging passers-by to take one. Their voices overlap, each promising something better, something different, though the details blur together in the heat of the moment. Your companion nudges you, pointing out a familiar face among them. A man connected to your ward, someone who knows your gang, who knows how to use it. He catches sight of you and nods, a quick signal that carries more meaning than the gesture itself suggests. You step forward, accepting a paper more out of obligation than interest. The man leans in slightly, speaking just low enough that others cannot easily hear. He mentions the importance of today, of showing strength, of making sure the right voices are heard. His tone is friendly, but there is an expectation beneath it. A lesser-known aspect of elections during this time is the extent to which gangs were sometimes employed to influence outcomes, whether by encouraging supporters to vote, discouraging opponents, or simply creating a presence that made certain choices feel safer than others. You glance around and begin to see it more clearly. Groups positioned at key points, men watching who approaches the voting area, others guiding individuals toward one table or another. It's not subtle, but it is effective. A man approaches, hesitant, looking between the options. Before he can decide, someone steps beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder, speaking in a tone that suggests guidance but feels closer to pressure. The man nods quickly, taking the offered paper, moving toward the indicated spot. There is ongoing discussion among historians about how representative these elections truly were, given the influence exerted by political machines and local groups. From where you stand, the idea of a free and independent choice feels complicated. People vote, certainly, but the conditions around that choice shape it in ways that are hard to ignore. Your companion receives a quiet instruction from the familiar man. Nothing dramatic, just a suggestion to remain nearby, to keep an eye on things, to be present. Presence matters. It signals support readiness, a willingness to act if needed. You take up a position near the edge of the crowd, watching. A few members of your group drift in, each finding a place where they can observe without drawing too much attention. There is a rhythm to it, a coordination that feels almost practiced. A man raises his voice, accusing another of trying to vote twice. The accusation sparks immediate reaction. Voices rise, hands gesture sharply. For a moment it seems as though the situation might turn physical. Then someone intervenes, speaking quickly, calming the worst of it. The tension eases but does not disappear. A curious detail from accounts of the period is that repeat voting, sometimes called voting early, and often was not unheard of, with individuals attempting to cast multiple ballots under different names or disguises. Whether exaggerated or not, the stories reflect a system open to manipulation. You shift your weight, aware of how quickly things can change. The line between order and chaos here is thin, easily crossed. A single push, a careless word, and the entire scene could unravel. Yet there is also a strange sense of celebration. Music plays somewhere nearby. A group begins to chant, their voices rising in unison. Others join in, clapping, laughing. It is politics, yes, but also spectacle, community, and performance all woven together. Your companion leans closer, making a quiet remark about how important it is to be seen here. Not just for today, but for what follows. Favors are remembered. Participation is noted. Absence can be interpreted in ways that are not always favorable. You nod, understanding that this is another layer of the world you're entering. Not just streets and gangs, but politics and influence connections that reach beyond your immediate circle. As the afternoon wears on, the crowd shifts, some leaving, others arriving. The energy ebbs and flows, never settling completely. You remain where you are, watching, learning, becoming part of the scene without fully stepping into its center. Because here, as in so many parts of your day, the role you play is still being defined. You are present, you are noticed. You're beginning to understand how the pieces fit together. And as the light begins to change, casting longer shadows across the street, you feel the weight of it all. The choices, the expectations, the quiet agreements that shape the path ahead. Election day is not just about votes. It is about power and where you stand in relation to it. The long shadows from election day stretch into evening, and the city begins to change its clothing again. Daylight thins along the rooftops. Windows darken then glow. Lamps are lit one by one, small pools of yellow trembling in the damp air. The streets do not grow quiet. They simply trade one kind of noise for another. You leave the polling crowd behind, but the energy follows you. Men still argue in doorways. Someone sings a campaign song in a voice too bold for its accuracy. A few boys race past laughing, chased by no one in particular. The city feels restless, pleased with itself and not entirely sober. So a normal evening, but with extra patriotism and a higher chance of being punched by a stranger who claims it is for democracy. Then a bell rings. At first you think it is another church bell or perhaps some lingering election noise, but your companion stops. Others stop too. Heads turn toward the sound. The bell rings again, urgent and uneven, and somewhere down the street a shout rises. Fire! The word travels faster than flame. It jumps from mouth to mouth, doorway to doorway, window to window. A woman pulls a child indoors. A man runs towards the sound instead of away from it. Another bell joins the first, then another. The evening sharpens. In mid-19th century, New York firefighting is still dominated by volunteer fire companies, and these companies are more than emergency services. They are social clubs, neighborhood symbols, political tools, and sometimes fighting groups with polished engines and very large egos. Their members take pride in speed, strength, and reputation. Saving buildings is important, certainly, but arriving first can matter almost as much. You follow the movement not too close, but close enough to see. Men rush past, hauling a hand-pumped fire engine, its wheels clattering over stones. The machine is heavy, painted and decorated, pulled by men who lean forward with their whole bodies. Torches swing, boots strike sparks. The firemen shout for people to move, and people do move, though not always in the most helpful direction. The smell reaches you before the flames do. Smoke sharp and oily mixed with hot wood and the faint bitter scent of burning cloth. It curls above the roofline ahead, turning the evening sky brown. You feel it in your throat, dry and scratchy. The crowd thickens. People love danger from a survivable distance. You and your companion slip along the edge of the gathering. The burning building appears to be a workshop or small warehouse with smoke pushing from an upper window. Flames show briefly inside orange and alive, then vanish behind a rolling curtain of black. Men shout from below. Someone claims there are people trapped. Someone else shouts that there are not. As usual, certainty arrives faster than truth. One fire company is already there dragging hose toward a water source. Another company arrives moments later and the mood changes immediately. The first group curses them, the second curses back. For a moment the fire seems almost secondary to the insult of another crew appearing on the same street. A little-known reality of volunteer firefighting in this period, that rival companies sometimes fought each other at fires, competing for prestige control of hydrants or simple neighborhood pride. Imagine your house burning, while two groups of muscular men pause to debate who deserves the honor of helping. Very efficient, very soothing. The men shove, shout and shoulder one another, but then a stronger voice cuts through. A foreman points towards the building and enough order returns to matter. The pump begins its rhythmic labor, men working the long handles up and down their bodies, moving like parts of the machine. Water surges through the hose. It arcs toward the window and hisses into smoke. The crowd murmurs approval, some cheer, some cough. You watch the firemen with reluctant admiration. For all their swagger, they work hard, their shirts cling to their backs. Their faces shine with sweat and reflected flame. They move through heat with the practiced recklessness of people who know danger intimately and enjoy being admired for it. Night deepens around the scene. Lanterns bob in the crowd. The flames brighten the brick walls and faces nearby, making everyone look carved and strange. Shadows leap across the street. A child begins crying from the noise, not the fire itself, and is hushed against someone's shoulder. Above, smoke folds into the dark sky. Volunteer fire companies often had close ties to gangs, ward politics, and working-class male culture. A firehouse could be a place of belonging, a place to drink, organize, boast, and build alliances. Some men you know move between these worlds easily. One night they pull an engine, another night they stand outside a polling place, another night they settle a score in an alley. The city does not separate these roles neatly because the city is not applying for a museum label. You notice a familiar face among the firemen, a broad-shouldered member of a nearby company who once drank with your crew and later fought beside rivals over something no one now remembers clearly. He spots your companion and grins through the smoke. It is not quite friendship. It is recognition, which is often enough. Then someone shouts about sparks on the roof next door. The crowd shifts backward. A woman cries out that her rooms are there. Two firemen scramble toward the adjoining building, and for a few minutes the whole street seems to hold its breath. If the fire jumps, half the block could be threatened. Buildings are crowded close together with wood-cloth straw and all the charming, flammable clutter of poor city life packed inside them. Debate continues among urban historians over whether volunteer fire companies were heroic community institutions undermined by disorder or rowdy political fraternities that happened to fight fires. Watching them now breathing smoke as they strain at the pump, you find the division unfair. They are heroic. They are disorderly. They are community. They are trouble. Most human institutions are disappointing like that when viewed from close range. Gradually the water does its work. The flames shrink, flare once, then retreat into smoke. The crowd senses the danger easing and grows louder again because apparently peace is an invitation to commentary. Men begin explaining what should have been done despite having done absolutely none of it. Women gather children. Someone laughs too hard from relief or drink. The firemen keep working, stamping out smaller flames, carrying debris into the street. Your companion gestures for you to move away before the police decide the crowd needs thinning. You follow, coughing once into your sleeve. The smoke clings to your coat, adding itself to the day's collection of odours: river tar market, grease saloon, tobacco, street damp, human worry. You're becoming a walking archive of lower Manhattan smells. Congratulations. As you leave, a fireman's helmet catches the lamplight bright for one brief second. You think of the men pulling the heavy engine through the street, eager to be first, eager to be seen, eager, perhaps, to be useful. That hunger is familiar. It is not so different from gang pride, from election muscle, from the way your own crew stands on a corner hoping the world will recognize its importance. Night fully settles now. The city narrows under gaslight and lantern glow. Doorways become darker, alleys deepen. Sounds carry strangely footsteps, laughter wheels, distant bells, a bottle breaking, somewhere unseen. Firelight fades behind you, but the restless feeling remains. Your companion says there may be another gathering later, or maybe nothing. In this neighbourhood, plans are often suggestions made to a future that may not cooperate. You nod, and the two of you walk on, moving through the lantern-lit streets where danger and festivity brush shoulders so closely they might as well be dancing. The night watch is beginning, but not the official kind alone. Everyone watches, women from windows, boys from corners, saloon keepers from behind bars, police from under helmet brims, gang members from shadows, firemen from their houses waiting for the next bell to turn boredom into glory. And as you pass beneath the dim glow of a lamp, your shadow stretches long across the stones, thin and wavering, as if even it is unsure whether to follow you deeper into the night. The night settles deeper, and with it comes a different kind of attention. Not louder, not brighter, but sharper. The sort that makes you aware of your own footsteps, the scrape of your boots against stone, the way your breath shows faintly in the cooling air. The city has not gone to sleep. It has simply lowered its voice. You and your companion turn down a narrower street, one where the lamplight barely reaches the ground. Shadows gather in the corners thick enough to hide a man who wishes not to be seen. You do not rush. Rushing invites notice. You walk with the same measured pace you learned this morning, though now it carries a heavier weight. Then it happens quickly, as such things often do. A voice calls out behind you, sharp, official. You stop. Not immediately. That would look guilty, but not too slowly either. That would look worse. You turn, keeping your expression steady, your posture loose but ready. Two policemen approach, their silhouettes cutting through the dim light. One you recognize, the one your companion warned about earlier, the one who has something to prove tonight. He looks at you, then at your companion, then back again. His gaze lingers just long enough to make the silence uncomfortable. "Where are you headed?" he asks. A simple question, not simple at all. You answer calmly. "Home." Always a good answer. Vague enough to be safe, familiar enough to sound true. He studies your face as if trying to decide whether your version of home matches his. Encounters like this were common in mid-19th century New York, where policing often relied as much on personal judgment as on formal procedure. Officers had considerable discretion in deciding who to stop, question, or detain, especially in neighborhoods already viewed with suspicion. Your companion adds something light, almost joking, about the long day that noised the fire earlier. The officer does not smile. Humor is not always appreciated, particularly by men who feel their authority has been tested. He asks if you have been drinking. You shake your head. True enough. For now. He steps closer. You can smell tobacco on his coat, a faint trace of something stronger beneath it. His partner watches quietly, less interested, or perhaps simply more patient. There is a pause. It stretches. Moments like this are delicate. Say too much and you risk giving something away. Say too little and you appear evasive. You find the middle offering just enough to satisfy without inviting further questions. A small lesser-known detail is that many arrests in this period were for minor offences or simply for maintaining order rather than for serious crimes. Loitering, disorderly conduct, suspicion. The line between questioning and detention could be thin. The officer finally steps back, though his expression does not soften. He tells you to keep moving, to stay out of trouble, as if trouble is something you can avoid simply by deciding to. You nod. Of course you nod. You turn and walk away, resisting the urge to look back. Only when you have put a few corners between you and them do you allow your shoulders to loosen slightly. Your companion lets out a breath, quiet but noticeable. He mutters something about bad timing, about how the man has been on edge all evening. You nod again, though your thoughts are elsewhere. Because this time you are allowed to walk. Not everyone is. You pass a building where voices drift from an open window, someone telling a story, others listening. Life continues above you, as if the encounter you just had is nothing unusual. Perhaps it is not. Still, the possibility lingers. What if the officer had decided differently? What if he had asked more questions? What if he had chosen to make an example of you? The path from street to cell is not a long one here. A wrong word, a familiar face in the wrong place, a connection you cannot deny. Suddenly you are no longer walking under lamplight. You're behind bars waiting. Jails at this period were often overcrowded, holding a mix of offenders from petty thieves to those accused of more serious crimes. Conditions varied, but comfort was rarely part of the experience. Time there could mean lost work, strained connections, and a reputation that follows you long after you leave. You have heard stories, everyone has. A boy held overnight for nothing more than being in the wrong place. A man kept longer because he could not pay a fine. Another released quickly because someone spoke for him. The system is not consistent. It bends depending on who you know, what you can offer, and how much trouble someone thinks you are worth. There is ongoing discussion among historians about how justice operated in these neighborhoods, whether it functioned as a tool of control or as a necessary if flawed attempt to maintain order. From your perspective, it feels like both. Protection for some, pressure for others. You walk past a small building with barred windows, faint light glowing inside. You do not need to be told what it is. The presence alone is enough. You glance at it briefly, then away. Better not to stare. Your companion mentions a man who was taken in last week. No one is quite sure why. He may return, he may not. The uncertainty is part of it. People disappear for a time, then reappear changed in ways that are not always visible at first. You reach a corner where the street opens slightly, giving you a bit more space to breathe. The night air feels cooler air, cleaner perhaps, though that may be your imagination. You pause, leaning briefly against a wall, letting the tension drain from your body. Your hands are steady, but you can still feel the echo of the encounter, the way the officer's gaze lingered. the weight of his decision. It could have gone differently. It might next time, because there will be a next time. In a place like this, encounters with authority are not rare events. They are part of the rhythm, as predictable in their own way as the morning vendors or the evening lamps. You push yourself away from the wall and continue on your steps, measured once more. The city stretches ahead, dimly lit, full of paths that twist and turn, some leading to familiar places, others to uncertain ends. And as you move through it, you carry the knowledge that your freedom tonight was not guaranteed. It was allowed. You keep walking after the encounter, your senses sharpened in a way that does not fade quickly. Even when the immediate danger passes, the body remembers. Your ears catch small sounds more clearly. A footstep behind you. A voice raised somewhere ahead. The creak of a sign swinging in the night air. Everything feels just a little closer. The streets are busier again as you move toward a wider thoroughfare. Night has drawn more people out, not fewer. Lamps glow along the road, their light pooling unevenly, leaving patches of shadow between them. In those shadows, anything might wait, or nothing at all. It is often hard to tell the difference. You pass a group gathered tightly near a corner, their voices low but intense. Not laughter this time. Something sharper. You slow just enough to catch a word or two. Work, wages, ship, names of places far from here. The conversation carries an edge, as if it might spill over into something louder. The city in these years is not only crowded, it is strained. Jobs come and go, prices rise, new arrivals compete for the same work as those already here. The result is a constant pressure building quietly beneath the surface. Most days it stays contained. Some days it does not. You move on, but the tone of that conversation stays with you. Further down, you notice a wall with fresh markings scratched into it. Not art, not decoration, but signs, names, symbols, messages meant for those who understand them. Territory warnings, pride. You recognize some of the marks, others are new. Your companion points out one in particular, tracing it lightly with his finger without quite touching it. A rival group, he says. They have been making their presence known more often lately, testing, watching, waiting. You nod, feeling again that subtle tightening in your chest. The same feeling you had earlier when crossing unfamiliar ground, but this is different. This is closer to home. There is a small detail noted in some accounts of the time that tensions between groups could build over weeks or even months before breaking into open conflict. A single incident might seem sudden, but often it sits on top of many smaller ones, each adding a layer. You begin to notice more signs. A broken window that has not been repaired. A shopkeeper standing outside his door longer than necessary, watching the street with a wary expression. A pair of men arguing in hushed tones, their words too quiet to hear but their gestures sharp. Something is shifting. You reach a stretch of road where the crowd thickens again, but the energy is different from the earlier bustle. People are not just moving, they are watching, waiting. Conversations stop as others pass, then resume once they are gone. Your companion leans closer, his voice low. There has been trouble in another ward, he says. A fight that went too far, injuries, maybe worse. The details are unclear, but the effect is already spreading. News travels quickly here, carried by word of mouth, by runners, by chance encounters. It does not need to be precise to have an impact. Even a rumour can change the mood of an entire street. You feel it now, that change. A group of boys runs past, not laughing this time, but moving with purpose. One carries something tucked under his coat. You do not see what it is, but you can guess. The city teaches you to guess. There is an ongoing debate among historians about how riots in this period began, whether they were spontaneous eruptions of anger or the result of organised efforts by groups with specific goals. Standing here, it feels like a mixture of both. The anger is real. The organisation, when it appears, simply gives it direction. You pass a saloon where the usual noise has quieted. Inside, men sit closer together, speaking in low voices. The bartender watches the door more than his customers. Even the piano, usually eager to fill silence, sits still. Outside, a woman hurries past with her children, her grip tight on their hands. She does not look at anyone. Her focus is fixed ahead, as if reaching home is the only thing that matters. A strange detail from the time is that some residents could predict trouble based on small changes in routine. The way people gathered, the tone of voices, the absence of usual sounds. It was not an exact science, but it was often accurate enough to matter. You and your companion reach a corner where several members of your group are already gathered. Their expressions are serious. One of them speaks quickly, outlining what he has heard. A rival group is moving. Not here yet, but close. Too close. The plan is simple. Stay alert, stay together. Do not provoke, but do not retreat if challenged. It is a familiar balance, though it never feels comfortable. You take your place among them, your earlier experiences of the day layering into this moment. The market, the docks, the Bowery, the police, the fire. Each piece has led you here to a street that feels on the edge of something larger. The lamps flicker slightly as a breeze moves through casting, shifting shadows across the group. Faces appear and disappear in the changing light. The city seems to hold its breath. You hear footsteps approaching from down the street. Not hurried, but steady, deliberate. Your group falls silent. The approaching figures come into view, their shapes resolving in the lamplight. You recognize the signs, the posture, the way they carry themselves. Rivals. No words at first, just the distance closing between you. This is how it begins. Not with a shout or a strike, but with presence. With two groups occupying the same space, neither willing to yield. You feel your heartbeat quicken, your senses narrowing. The world reduces to the street, the faces, the space between. Someone speaks, a simple phrase, a question perhaps, or a challenge. The answer comes just as simply. The tension tightens, ready to snap. And in that moment, you understand how easily the city can tip from uneasy balance into chaos. How all the small pressures of the day can gather into a single point. You do not know how this will end, only that it has begun. The distance between the two groups narrows until it feels almost physical, like a pressure in the air rather than just space on the street. No one rushes forward yet. That would be too simple. Instead, there is a pause long enough for each side to measure the other, to count faces, to judge confidence, to decide whether this will remain a standoff or turn into something more. You stand where you are, aware of your position in the line, aware of who is beside you and who is not. Your companion shifts slightly, adjusting his stance, not retreating, not advancing. Around you, the rest of your group does the same, a quiet coordination that requires no instruction. The rival group mirrors you. One of them speaks again, louder this time. The words are not particularly clever, but they do not need to be. Insults here are less about creativity and more about intent. The tone carries the meaning. Your side answers just as plainly. For a moment, it seems as though the exchange might remain verbal. That happens sometimes. Words thrown like stones, then dropped when neither side wishes to pay the cost of escalation. But tonight the mood feels different. The tension has been building all day through small encounters, whispered news, shifting boundaries. It is looking for an outlet. A shove breaks the balance. It is not even a hard shove, just enough to cross the invisible line between talk and action. But that is all it takes. The response comes instantly. Hands reach, bodies surge forward, and the careful stillness collapses into movement. You are pulled into it before you have time to think. The fight is not organized. It is not elegant. It is a tangle of bodies, fists, voices, and sudden bursts of motion. You focus on what is directly in front of you. A face, a shoulder, a hand reaching too close. You react, pushing, striking, trying to keep your footing on the uneven stones. The sounds blur together. Shouts, curses, the dull impact of blows, the scrape of boots. Someone stumbles. Someone else pulls him back. The lamplight flickers, casting the scene in shifting shadows that make it hard to see clearly. Street fights like this were a common feature of urban life in certain parts of New York during this period, often involving groups defined by neighborhood ethnicity or affiliation. They could be brief and chaotic, ending as quickly as they began, or they could escalate into large disturbances that drew in more participants. You feel a hand grab your sleeve, pulling you sideways just as someone lunges forward. The motion saves you from taking the full force of the impact. You do not stop to thank whoever did it. There is no time for that. A bottle shatters somewhere nearby, the sound sharp and sudden. You flinch instinctively, then refocus. The fight shifts again, bodies moving, space opening and closing unpredictably. There is a curious detail noted in some descriptions of these clashes that many participants relied more on fists and improvised objects than on weapons designed for fighting. It was less about precision and more about presence, about pushing the other side back, about holding ground. You push forward with the others not out of aggression alone, but because standing still is not an option. The group moves as one, surging and retreating in uneven waves. You catch glimpses of faces, some familiar, some not, all marked by the same intensity. Then just as suddenly as it began, the fight begins to break apart. Someone shouts a warning, "Police!" The word cuts through the noise like a blade. Instantly the energy shifts. What was a moment ago a struggle for dominance becomes a scramble for escape. No one wants to be caught in the middle of this, not by men who will not care who started it or why. You pull back, stepping away from the centre. You're breathing quick, your heart still racing. Around you others do the same, dispersing into the surrounding streets, vanishing into doorways, alleys, shadows. You and your companion move together, not running but not lingering either. The skill now is to appear as though you have always been walking, as though you were never part of what just happened. Behind you the sound of boots and stone grows louder, accompanied by voices calling out. Orders, commands, demands for order, the city's attempt to reassert control. There is ongoing discussion among historians about how effective policing was in managing these kinds of disturbances, especially in densely populated areas where participants could quickly disappear into the environment. From what you have just seen, it is clear that the streets offer many ways to vanish. You turn down a side street, then another, putting distance between yourself and the scene. Your breathing begins to slow, though the adrenaline lingers, making everything feel slightly unreal. Your companion glances at you, checking for injuries. You shake your head. Nothing serious, a bruise, perhaps a scrape. Others may not be so fortunate, but that is not something you can address now. A lesser-known aspect of these encounters is how quickly they fade from the surface of the city. Within hours, sometimes minutes, the streets return to their usual rhythm. The evidence of conflict reduced to a few broken objects, a bruise, a story retold. You reach a quieter stretch of road and finally allow yourself to stop. You lean against a wall, the cool surface grounding you. The sounds of the city continue around you unchanged in many ways, indifferent to what has just occurred. Your companion lets out a short laugh, not from amusement but from release. The tension needs somewhere to go, and laughter is as good a place as any. You nod, still catching your breath, still processing the moment. The fight was not planned, not fully. It was the result of many small pressures coming together at the wrong time in the wrong place. You push yourself away from the wall, ready to move again. Because the night is not over, and neither is the life you are learning to live. You keep moving, even after the noise of the fight fades into the distance. The city does not pause to let you gather yourself. It never has. The streets stretch ahead in dim patches of light and shadow, quieter now, but never truly still. Your breath steadies. Your pulse slows, and yet something lingers inside you, a restless echo of everything the day has carried. Your companion drifts off at a corner with a brief word about meeting again tomorrow, or perhaps later, depending on how the night unfolds. Plans here are flexible in the way that survival requires. You nod and watch him disappear into a doorway swallowed by darkness and familiarity at the same time. Now you are alone. Not completely alone, of course, there are always people nearby, behind walls above you, ahead of you, but alone in the sense that no one is watching your next step quite as closely. No one is measuring your place in the group. No one is ready to pull you forward or hold you back. You walk without urgency, letting your path follow the quieter streets. The lamps flicker gently, their glow softer now, less harsh than earlier. A cart rattles past its driver, half asleep, guiding the horse more by habit than attention. Somewhere a window closes, somewhere else laughter drifts out, fading quickly. It is in these quieter moments that your thoughts begin to stretch beyond the immediate. You pass a narrow alley and pause for a second, looking down its length. It leads nowhere you need to go, but it holds that familiar sense of possibility. Every path here seems to offer something. Work, trouble, connection, escape, often all at once. There were many young men in New York during this period who found themselves at a similar crossroads, pulled between the stability of steady work and the unpredictable pull of street life. Some managed to leave the gangs behind, taking jobs on ships in workshops, or moving further uptown as the city expanded. Others remained their lives shaped by the same streets year after year. You wonder briefly which path might be yours. The thought is not dramatic. It does not come with a grand vision or a clear plan. It is more like a quiet question slipping in between the louder concerns of the day. Could you leave? Would you want to? What would that even look like? You imagine the docks, again the ships lined up along the river, their masts cutting into the sky, men boarding with bundles heading somewhere else, somewhere not here. The idea carries a certain appeal, movement, change, a chance to be unknown again. But then you think of what that would mean. Leaving behind the people you know, the small network of recognition that keeps you anchored. Starting over in a place where no one knows your name, your face, your history. That can be freedom. It can also be its own kind of danger. A small detail often overlooked is how many people in this era moved frequently within the city itself, shifting from one neighborhood to another as work, rent, and circumstances changed. Stability was not always tied to staying in one place. Sometimes it meant knowing when to move. You continue walking your boots softer now against the worn stones. The night air cools your skin, carrying fewer smells than the day, though they never disappear entirely. Smoke, damp wood, distant cooking fires, the faint trace of the river. You pass a couple, standing close together in a doorway, speaking quietly. Their voices are low, almost private, even in the open air. You do not hear the words, but the tone is enough. There are connections here that have nothing to do with gangs or work or survival, or perhaps they are part of survival in a different way. Further along, you see a man sitting alone on a step staring out at the street. His posture is not defeated, but reflective. He looks like someone considering his place in the world just as you are now. There has long been discussion about whether people in environments like this had real opportunities to change their circumstances, or whether the structures around them made such changes rare and difficult. The answer, like most things here, is not simple. Some find a way, many do not. The difference often lies in a combination of chance choice and connections that cannot be easily predicted. You reach a small open space where the buildings pull back slightly, giving you a view of the sky. It's not clear, not fully. The city's smoke and light soften the stars, but a few still show through. You look up for a moment, letting your eyes adjust. It is easy to forget the sky when you spend most of your time looking at walls, faces, and the ground beneath your feet. Seeing it now feels like a small shift, a reminder that there is more beyond the streets you know. You think again about tomorrow, about the meeting your companion mentioned, about the work that might or might not be there, about the small choices that will shape the next day just as today's choices have shaped this moment. You do not have a clear plan, few people here do, but you have a sense of direction, even if it is only a feeling rather than a map. You turn back towards the part of the neighborhood that feels most familiar, your step steady, your thoughts settling into a quieter rhythm. The night has softened around you, the earlier tension replaced by a calmer, more reflective mood. And as you walk, you carry with you the weight of the day, not as a burden, but as something that has added to your understanding of the city, of the people, of yourself. Because even in a place defined by struggle, there are moments like this. Moments where the noise fades just enough for you to hear your own thoughts. And in those moments, you begin to imagine what might come next. You drift back towards the streets that have begun to feel like yours, though you would never say that aloud. Ownership here is fragile, always shared, always contested. Still, familiarity settles around you like a worn coat, not perfect, but shaped to fit. The lamps burn lower now, their glow softer, their edges blurred by the damp night air. The noise has thinned. Not gone, never gone, but reduced to scattered sounds. A door closing, a distant laugh. The slow roll of a cart heading somewhere that probably matters to someone. You pass the same buildings you saw this morning, though they seem different now. The sharp edges of daylight have softened into shadow. Windows that look tired now glow faintly, holding small pockets of life behind thin glass. A silhouette moves across one. A hand lifts a cup. Someone leans close to speak. These glimpses feel quieter, more personal, as if the city has turned inward for a while. You walk more slowly, letting the rhythm of your steps match the calm that has settled in. The urgency of the day has passed. The fights, the noise, the watching eyes, all of it feels further away now, even though you know it will return with the morning. This is the part of the day that does not make it into bold stories. The winding down, the breathing out, the small private moments that follow the larger ones. You pass a familiar doorway and pause just for a second. Inside you can hear low voices, someone speaking softly, another answering. Not an argument, not celebration, just conversation. The kind that fills space without demanding attention. A detail from life in neighborhoods like this that often goes unremarked is how much of it exists in these quiet exchanges. Not every moment is struggle or conflict. Many are simply people continuing, adjusting, enduring, finding small ways to make the day feel complete. You move on, turning toward your lodging house. The building looms the same as before, its worn structure holding together more by habit than strength. Yet now, after everything the day has shown you, it feels almost steady. A place you know how to enter. A place where you understand the rules even if you do not like them. You step inside. The hallway is dim, the air thick with the same familiar smells. Smoke-damp wood, the lingering traces of meals and bodies. But there is also a kind of warmth here, not from comfort but from presence. From the simple fact that people are here living, continuing. You climb the stairs, each step slower than before. Your body feels the day now. The walking, the lifting, the tension, the brief burst of fighting. It settles into your muscles, not painful but heavy. At the top you pause again, listening. Someone coughs in a nearby room. A baby shifts, then quiets. A low murmur of voices drifts through a thin wall. Life compressed into close quarters, continuing even in rest. You enter your room. It is just as you left it, though. It feels different now because you have changed, even if only slightly. You sit for a moment, letting the stillness settle around you. Your hands rest on your knees. Your shoulders loosen. The day begins to replay in fragments. The market, the docks, the Bowery, the fire, the police, the fight. Each piece connects, forming a pattern that is not always clear, but always present. There is long-standing discussion about what defined daily life for young men in environments like this, whether it was shaped more by hardship, by opportunity, or by the relationships they formed. From where you sit, it feels like all of these at once. No single thread explains it. It is the weaving together that creates the whole. You lie back, the thin mattress shifting beneath you. The ceiling above is the same stained surface you saw this morning, but now it feels less unfamiliar. You know this place a little better. You know yourself a little better within it. Outside the city continues, though, more quietly now. A distant voice rises, then fades. A cart passes its wheels softer on the stones. The night deepens. You close your eyes, and as you do, the edges of the day begin to soften. The sharp moments blur, the tension eases. What remains is a sense of movement, of having passed through something, of having learned without fully realizing it at the time. Your breathing so slows. The room holds you not gently but steadily, and as the final sounds of the street drift through the walls, you begin to let go of the day piece by piece, allowing it to settle into memory rather than motion. The city will still be there in the morning. The same streets, the same choices, the same uncertainties. But for now you rest. The noise fades further. The light dims behind your closed eyes. The weight of the world loosens just enough to let sleep find you. And in that quiet between one day and the next, you exist simply as you are. Not defined by the gang or the street or the expectations that wait outside, just here, just breathing, just drifting. Now the night deepens further and your thoughts begin to slow, stretching out like the quiet streets beyond your window. The edges of the city soften in your mind, the sharp corners rounding into something gentler, less demanding. You no longer feel the need to follow every sound, to track every movement. The world outside continues, but it moves further away like a distant tide. You picture the streets as they settle, the last footsteps fading, the lamps glowing softly in their places. The building stands still, holding the warmth of the day, the echoes of voices, the quiet presence of those inside. There is a rhythm to it, a steady calming pulse that carries through the night. Your body sinks a little deeper into rest, the tension easing from your shoulders, your hands, your breath. Each inhale feels surer, each exhale longer, as if the air itself has grown softer. The city, for all its noise and struggle, allows this moment. A pause, a space between one day and the next. You do not need to decide anything here, you do not need to move or react or prove anything. You simply rest. And as the last thoughts drift gently through your mind, they lose their urgency, becoming lighter, quieter, until they fade into the calm that surrounds you. The night holds you there steady and still. Sweet dreams.